Everybody. I'm starting about 45 minutes after when I thought I would today. I made the rather rash decision to install a an NVIDIA update because, as everyone knows, this is a game that definitely benefits from the latest NVIDIA updates. And it decided to play a fun little game called Hide My Audio Driver. So yeah, there was that. But instead of complaining about my technical issues, let's enjoy this wonderful early beta. Now, I seem to recall I said I was going to read the early instruction or the beta instructions or the like setup or whatever, and then I proceeded to do the credits, but not the instructions. So I'm going to do that at the start for this run. And then, if I recall correctly, we sort of left things at a point where I had a number of different skills that I could sort of commit to the Tree of Wisdoms. And we didn't have any really clear ideas yet in terms of where all of them would go. But I want to try and do a little bit of a self-reinforcing sort of build-up. What I'm thinking of here is maybe sorry, I should be a little more careful. So what I'm thinking is right now we've got some things like Faust, we've got a couple of other elements of the soul which will allow us to access new rooms, new books. And I think maybe the first priority should be trying to catalog and otherwise deal with the new arrivals. To basically just sort of broaden out that set of skills. I've been debating in terms of how far I want to go down this path of picking a bunch of level 2 skills so that I can start building up the Tree of Wisdoms, and how much I want to start focusing on really going down one of these branches. I'm going to try and strike a bit of a balance, but I also don't want to spend the entire broadcast like planning out the tree. But before we do any of that, the House of Light. So just a reminder, this is an early beta of House of Light. I must confess, I know I said this sarcastically in the Twitter. I'm feeling a little bit bad about my participation in this beta, simply because I feel that even though I played quite slowly in the base game, that I was still submitting somewhat regular bug reports, and I felt, I guess the only really useful bug report is the one when it's first off. But in this case, I really felt like I was contributing something. This time around, I really feel that I'm coming to a lot of the things that are being identified as bugs quite late. I really don't know if I'm pulling my weight. I appreciate tremendously Weather Factory letting me in this beta, and I really want to try and do better in terms of identifying, the sorts of things that they're looking to get. But I will confess, I've been sort of having this nagging feeling in the back of my head that I've not really been doing as well as I would like in terms of just being able to help shape this or give them the information that they need to make this as good as it can be. But I mean, that fear aside, the key to this, of course, is to just, do the work, right? I've been streaming this every day that I can. I intend to continue streaming it. And, when I run into things, as I say, it does mean that we'll put a little bit of a pause on the stream while I resolve it, or while I make a note. But in this case here, we've got, we just haven't encountered a whole lot that I need to yet. So just a caution there that what you're looking at is an early look at the game. It's actually, to me, I haven't encountered that much. That's a showstopper, I don't think. But it's still worth marking just so that people don't get the wrong expectations. All right, in the House of Light. House of Light is a big expansion woven deep into the game. Here's a spoiler light guide on how to find the new bits. Combine ingredients at the 3 kitchen workstations to create dozens of new dishes. You'll need kitchenware items to find all the recipes. Tip: the spice scales, the spices and savors scale will substitute for each other. A writing case. Once you've received this gift, you can record addresses from the calling cards left by satisfied visitors and write to those visitors to invite them back to the house. Tip: visitors don't arrive instantly, visitors don't leave calling cards until you've helped them, and some visitors are easier to summon than others. This turns out to be a very practical improvement to the game. I'm quite fond of this. I do think there is a danger that you may over-invite people, that the arrival of someone new may be a little bit less of sort of a special thing. But particularly with some of the struggles I've had in terms of getting Hyksos, I do actually think that this is helping me overcome a couple of things that have been difficult for the YouTube run. Sorry. And overall, I think on balance, it's the right one. Particularly the way that the typewriter works now. Salons. Place food and drink in one of the 6 salon rooms and then use the bell to begin a salon. Do it right and you'll be rewarded with sparkling conversation and lessons. Tip: visitors usually prefer food and drink which matches their primary interest, but some have additional requirements. Beta note: there are about 400 interactions here, but probably another 100 to go. In particular, the villagers don't yet have unique interactions. I think there is an adjustment here for Mr. and Mrs. Kill. Manuscripts. Use paper, ink, and a skill to write a manuscript based on that skill. These manuscripts may be necessary to satisfy thirst for specific knowledge in further stories. Lessons from Salons will help you improve those skills and write more useful manuscripts. Tip: you can't reliably control what visitors will discuss. It's a party, not an interrogation, but they will usually provide lessons related to their shared interests. Further stories. Once you've completed an incident, follow it up in the Tree of Wisdoms. Visitors will need more specific help here, and perhaps a book on a specific topic, or a specific book. Note: further stories for An Invisible Opera and Dappled Rose are not yet available in beta. Tip: an affair opens to further stories once all interested visitors have had the opportunity to ask you for help with it. Be aware, in some further stories, it can make a difference who you originally helped. Be careful, this is the one part of the game where choices can sometimes have permanent consequences. And finally, the Institute. Look for the lighthouse out at sea. When your visitors are ready, use it to establish the true heirs to the Curia of the Isle. Note: only a very limited and incomplete preview of the Institute functionality is available in beta. Tip: further stories outcomes can inspire your visitors to support the Institute for their own reasons. Their nature is constant, but some story outcomes can make them decide to emphasize one agenda over another. Under... Oops, wrong button. Under the patch notes, patch 2024 8H5. My name is Hokebald Aposend. Do not mangle it in your peasant mouth. I'm sure I did. There are now hotkeys for expanded contact trays, F1 to F4 by default. Shift tab or shift other assigned sort of key now undoes card sorting. Apples are sometimes found on the moor. Raw pheasant and beef can now be fed to the cat or other carnivorous pets. The bronze knife is now a tool. Typewriters and the Chronsicord can now be used as inks, and typewriters won't be exhausted. In particular, in House of Light, you can now type letters and manuscripts, although you may need more aspect sources. House of Light, it's easier to make King's Luck Pie and possible to make vegetable stew. A handful of unique visitor responses to particular dishes. Mrs. Kill can now be invited for dinner along with her husband, even if she's not a friend. Connie can still be recruited as a founder, even if she makes a certain career choice. Further stories text size now honors text size setting. Further stories text now can be click copied. Lighthouse Institute endings are now available. A potential Institute founder can no longer have both agenda secrecy and agenda and revelation. I thought I'd squashed that ages ago, but no. House of Light at the salon end. Food and drink remains no longer manifest as pink triangles. Some achievements will trigger in-game, but they're not yet live on Steam/GOG, and restored Stargazy Pie and also jam recipes. Finally, lots of other fixes. And then the Gravenius update, tweak layout when there's a lot of arrival verbs, excised 4 instances of Frasier and 6 of the. Added a minor variant to outcome for Unfinished Lark. Serpent milk is no longer a cooking ingredient, and if you pour or don't pour the thing we don't talk about in the place we don't discuss, the result now shows correctly that you poured it or didn't, rather than the reverse. And fixed a nasty, subtle bug where further stories weren't noticing changes in other further stories. So there's one last thing that I'm going to sort out here. That's just a quick note on the version that I'm playing in case I run into anything. 2024 08. Oh, not 08, but H. Okay. I seem to remember I tried to de-idiot the start, so... Alright, so we're getting Revelation here. We are reading the winter text. Presumably we're already helping with letters. And I am getting the confounding parable back. So the confounding parable I think was going to be... Alright, so it should be Trist and Fet. So Magaphine Mysteries shouldn't be a difficult one to level up. And then I think the Inks of Power was going to get the Occult Scrap so I could add Arthur Moore's card, if I recall correctly. Alright, I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. Ah, now Magaphine Mysteries is already at level 2, so maybe I want to think about what I'm doing with that. Didn't I already have Inks of Power? Okay, so this is a little bit of a dilemma, right? Because darn it. I feel like I had made a decision and now I'm wavering. So if I don't wind up using... So I got to think about what I was going to use the Magaphine Mysteries for. Desires and Dissolutions would work. Coil and... sorry. Actually, there's an easier way to do this. Strings and songs, surgeries and exsanguinations, herbs and infusions, desires, dissolutions, pearl and tide, wolf stories, sharps, serpents and venoms, hill and hollow, rhyme and remembrance. Actually, I think sharps made sense here. Okay, so that, yes. We can use the Occult Scrap. Actually, before we do that. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. So I think I was trying to think about whether or not Magaphine Mysteries should move up to an even higher level, and part of that was because when I consider my I had like a little skills table here. So I was working out the elements of the soul that I needed to commit. So just a reminder here, we've got these ones taken care of. We've not yet gotten Birdsong, Preservation, Bosk, Skolakosophy, or Nyctodromy. And the question's really going to come down to what do I do with Crack Track? So that can go into Illumination for Faust or Preservation for Core. And the branch that it goes into starts its skills at level 3. And the branch that it doesn't go into starts its skills at level 2. It's obvious that Crack Track is going to get a second level, so you know if I have it, you know I can make my decision there. But it's not yet clear which of the two branches I'm going to commit it to. Although I can get it at at pretty much any point that I want. So, other than that, our plans are, so we've already taken care of Deep Mandayak, Erikapean, Fusine, Henevek. We don't have access to Hyksos. I believe I can get Kilisimi, and that's actually helpful because of the extra health, so I should maybe consider trying to bring Wakefield in. Ramsund requires some effort, but Fraser Strathcoyne isn't that hard for me to get because of the Caribbean. Arthur Moore will give me access to Sabazine, so we'll be adding him shortly. And Aaron Peel should give me the Fett, but that would require quite a bit of moon. So again, not impossible, but we do have a couple of things that are going to hold us back in terms of these these works. Let me just take a quick look at where all the ink is. So we needed to make a replacement here and refill up in the Analopolis Nook. Yeah, we're already making the Caribbean. Alright, the skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Sharps, knives, dangers, and things out of place. Now, the reason I kind of prioritize this one is that, so far as I can tell, we don't have any higher level edge in the collection yet. So this will give me access to some books that I otherwise wouldn't have had. Inks of Power, on the other hand, is something that I want to level up reasonably quickly. So we'll use the Occult Scrap for that. There's always more to learn. And as a result, we will add Arthur Moore's card to my writing case, because that will give me an Occult Scrap. Note Arthur Moore's address for what you might call an occult correspondence. But will they call when you do call? Will they come when you do call for them? Arthur Moore's address, CO, care of the Endeavour Club, Park Place, London. And in this case, it will take Lantern to bring them in. Okay, so we're keeping the Faust aside so that I can read letters to my successor. But I suppose there's the question in terms of what do I do with the Whist and the Metal. In theory, I could bring in Denzel, but I would need to restore the Metal then, which is not, like, that's not a terrible option. But perhaps there's something else that I can do. I don't know, we'll think about it. Let's see what my options are with certain elements of the, or with certain books first. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the Sweet Bones, with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Alright, Sunrise Awakenings, an uncharacteristically poignant meditation by the edge-long Trog of Marianid, who later came to Hush House under a variety of other names, often in search of some sort of fight. If light were not silent, it would be music. If music were visible, it would be light. Each day's light, Trog suggests, is faintly touched by the light of every past day, so in the light of every present day we may begin to understand something of days to come. At least this appears to be his conclusion, but he stops in mid-sentence, apparently having lost patience with the act of writing, or possibly having been ambushed. Alright, so we would normally want this desk, but I think the reading room will let me do Lantern as well. So, letters to my successor. Advice from Gervenius Van Loren, 11th Librarian of Hush House, to the one who will come after him. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Alright, so our best Lantern is Auroral Contemplations, or related. This book is going to be giving me Inks of Revelation, 2 of them, so that is good. And I believe we need, yeah, one more, so we will add the mirror scope, bewildering and occasionally useful. I can master this mystery, enough lantern to match mystery lantern. Some authorities claim it is difficult to lose a pot of Peribiot ink, but they haven't lived at Hush House. Alright, so for this one, I want to restore my health just so I can knock out another... Peribiot if I can. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Restore a fatigued soul card. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Inks of power, the inks in which the histories are written. So this also gives us a little extra rows, I think. Yep. So as a consequence, this means a few more books might become available to us, although obviously we have quite a few on the list already. So again, I'm going to wait on the results. So here, Nin's Cages will give us more quenchings and quellings. I think I said that I was going to try and commit that to 2 quenchings and quellings itself. I do kind of like the idea of my original skill being the one that I take all the way to the end. I do, so obviously I'm not opposed to... wow, I really missed out on the contents of this room. I will read the description again just to be sure, but I really should have done the inventory of the items, which I will get around to. So if I did that, why did I move the crossing to noon to the side? I think it was because I potentially could read it, but I wasn't certain yet. Better now. So there's a small argument for me to actually keep the 2 whist, but I'm going to do help with letters again. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Okay, so... Sorry, I need a minute to think. Probably should not have leveled up sharps like I did, because Victory of Crowns is actually quite straightforward for us to be able to level up, so that's my bad. I think I might have even said that previously, but I suppose I can put it towards Meniscate Reflections, maybe? Nope, because I don't have the moon. So what would the other moon be? Well, it doesn't have to be moon. It could be edge as well. Okay, so yeah, actually, Meniscate Reflections would be 1. Disciplines of the Scar, Ragged Crossroads. I am kind of partial to Disciplines of the Scar. Although it has occurred to me we may not have a big grail. Yeah, we don't have a big grail yet. So Great Signs and Great Scars would accomplish that, but then so would Desires and Dissolutions. Come to think of it, do I have a big moon? I do have a big moon, never mind. Okay, so yeah, Big Grail is probably the next one to move on to. Okay, let's do the inventory of the servants' quarters. This was once the private chamber of the formidable Ernestine Peterhans, Seneschal of Brandkrug. Baron Hendrik, and afterwards his son Thomas, would both descend the back stairs to visit her in person. For counsel, most said. For prayers, others insisted. Only the very foolish ever suggested anything there was any improper motive for their visits. Alright, so I'm running out of space for all my food, so a bolt of buttercup linen, suitable for a summer suit or an altar veil. We have the investigator's suitcase, a suitcase that once belonged to someone in the habit of shining a light in dark places. I still want to try and keep the food things in the same area. There we go. We've got shaving mirror, snip snip. Servant's quarters bed, so more health in this case, or more, heart rather. Got a weighty bedside candle holder to comfort you through the dark hours. We've got a severe chair, unfussy marsh green upholstery. There's the edge chair I was looking for earlier. A shadowless silk, a variant of the Persian silk tree. Golden is the shadowless kings. We have the widow's candle lighted in remembrance. A glass of water from Brankrug's Deep Springs. Dawn Lion coffee, a cup. Coffee from beyond the great deserts. I think another widow's candle, another bedside candle holder. All symmetrical-like. Okay. Nin's Cages, Bruges text, illuminated. The merciful measures of the witch Nin. This is only a partial version of the original, but it contains illustrations by Nin's pupil, Maybelline of Bruges, which supplement the original. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Mabley clearly enjoyed drawing both devourers and deceivers, but was less interested in illustrating disease symptoms. Nin warns against invoking the edict's liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure a lock may be, its key will surely open it. Mabley has helpfully illustrated this by drawing a sleepwalker clambering through an open window, about to leap into the jaws of a sea monster. The sea monster is goggle-eyed with happy anticipation. Alright, for our trouble, we got 2 lessons for quenchings and quellings, and a hindsight. So let's just take the time to put that in there. I don't think this is... Oh, nope, it is. Alright. Now if I want to level up quenchings and quellings, I'm going to need more than one... I'm going to need more than one of these memories. And I don't think I can actually take this hindsight overnight. So it would not be a bad idea for me to try and generate some sort of heart memory. I don't need to do 2, but it would be nice to, like I said, it would be nice to make sure that I'm using the memory properly. So maybe what I do is I bring in Mr. Kill for a conversation. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. So I'm going to take 2 rounds to restore the Whist in this case. But this gets me a source of memories. Actually, I'm also going to test something here. So, now this is interesting. So, it says soaked. Okay, invite the kills to Hush House. If you'll excuse me, I'm just going to take a quick second and make a quick note. So just give me a second here. Actually, just one more second. Sorry. Trying to find a specific reference. Okay. I lost it. Sorry. Hello. Sorry, Elgrins. I'm just I'm trying to make a note here for a report, and then I'm like in this terrible loop where I think I've written something down and then I don't have it, and then I I need to bring it back again, and so I'm trying to stay focused, and then I always wind up looking at something else. So, anyways, I apologize. I'm almost done. Okay, we are ready to go. How are you doing tonight, Elgrins? I apologize for keeping you on read for a bit. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. A tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. So the idea here is I'm going to do back-to-back Whist Restoration. I have a couple of items that I can use, or that I can basically use the elements of the soul on to restore. Sorry, just to like make sure that I use everything over the course of the day, but I don't know. I'd kind of prefer to use everything for the memories first. I deserved a little quiet time. Okay, so once we find the typewriter, we're not going to have the same need for inks, but right now I'm actually quite happy to be able to make more of the Peribiot. So if we just take the mixing bowls, or kitchen bowls, not all knots are physical. I can brew an ink, which ties the naming to the named. So I believe that restores our missing stock. I've always sort of said I wanted at least one ink at every desk. So we've got one in the Regensburg room. We've got the Houndskull in the reading room. The Ashertine in the Westcott. Sorry, is it Westcott room? Yeah, Westcott room. Another Ashertine. Stargull just lying around there. Peribiot at Nona's desk. Yep, I think we're good. So now we're sort of restocking in Elopolis Nook right now. Doing all right, though. Work as a dumpster fire inside of a larger dumpster fire inside of a landfill. So yeah, team of 6, 1 out due to double bypass surgery for their heart attack, 1 resisted or retired for health reasons. Suddenly short-staffed, and I get to work Saturday, off Sunday, back on Monday. I am sorry to hear that, Algrins. I think you said you were looking for a new role. I had a little bit of bumper cars this week. Nothing, like, I haven't completely soured on the workplace, but it's just one of these nice little reminders that, like, any job you work at. So, like, I was thinking, this is going to be it's totally unrelated to the game, but I don't know. I think it's worth thinking about. So I was kind of having this thought for a while that it's like, things are going pretty well at work and I really like work, and I kind of had this horrible sense of fatalism come in that, one day I'm like gonna screw something up, or like one day things are not gonna be all good, and I'm like, well, technically there's no rule saying that, right? Like in the world of possibilities, things may just be a constant upward trajectory. And like, I don't think it's helpful to just sort of say, I'm just waiting for the disaster. And more importantly, like, I just don't really feel that helps you prevent like a bad thing from happening or something like that. So what you try and keep things realistic. Try not to don't do anything that you will regret later, right? Like, so if you go all in on a tenuous job, right? Like, so I don't know, it's like I'm gonna take the little savings that I have and I'm gonna throw it all into this like startup that I'm doing, and I've never done a startup, and I don't even know anything about cash flow management or that. You're really setting yourself up for a pretty miserable set of circumstances, potentially. Whereas saying, a certain degree of caution, while it can definitely be a danger to be overly cautious, and of course people are generally risk-averse, sometimes that has a useful place, and sometimes that can hold you back from doing things. So, like, as with anything, right, you want to find a balance. So, essentially what happened this week, it was one of the first cases where it's like, okay, you know what, this wasn't a good thing. And it's like, it's the right way to react to something like that is not suddenly, this is the worst place ever, or, I'm super mad about it or whatever. To be honest, it's kind of like, this seems very silly, and I wish this didn't happen. I think this is a signal of potential problems, but it's definitely not a, like, kick up the dust and take my toys home moment or something like that. And it was also just kind of a moment where I sort of took it was really interesting the way that worked, because I took stock of, like, everything I'm doing at work, which is a lot. And I sort of had this moment of saying, is like, there is a situation where if some of this goes off the rails, I can actually get really far behind. So, the end result of this was just a nice little moment of reflection, saying, is like, okay, so how do I make sure that things don't fall behind? And, in the end, it sort of hopefully worked itself out. I feel reasonably good about sort of the plan that I worked out for myself. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think it's weird. Like, it can be kind of helpful to have little moments like that, just because it reminds you, just to keep on top of things. So yeah, I mean, again, like, obviously one didn't necessarily cause the other, I don't want to say, but I think there's sometimes some value in terms of just sort of saying, it's like, okay, this wasn't great, and this is not going to turn into a big problem. But, I think one of the things that I like is, like, if there was to be, something that would compound this, right? If there's another thing that happens, when would this become a bigger problem? When would this become something I can't handle? And that, I think, is a useful thing to be aware of. I've kind of just betrayed, though, that I am actually naturally very cautious. So, but everybody has, like I said, it sounds like you don't have a really good work situation right now, Algorins, which I'm sorry to hear. But yeah, overall, it would be very ungrateful of me to say, I'm anything but happy with my current spot. The only thing is, I do notice I'm spending more time at work, and my supervisor's actually been very good about this, like, telling me to, like, don't work too much, basically. And this is purely a problem of my own creation. But sometimes it's just a little easier to be in the zone and wrap it up. So if I could find a little more balance between work and the other things I need to do, then it would be just that perfect equilibrium. And I'm sort of on the wrong side of that right now, but I think that's also something that I can, I think that's something that I have the ability to, to find, like, that's a me thing, right? That's going to be something that I need to find the balance for myself. And I think I'm perfectly capable of doing that. All right, letters to my successor. Advice from Gervenius van Loren, 11th librarian of Hush House, to the one who will come after him. Some of the advice is practical. Don't worry about losing the house key. Always close the seaward windows. Make sure you feed the cockatoo. Much more of it is rarefied, especially about the Inks of Revelation, and some of it relates to Van Loren's own doom. When I was another, I made a foolish wager with the hooded princes to solve 7 riddles. If I had not realized the riddles would be set for me... I had not realized the riddles would be set for me by the one I would become. 6 are resolved, the 7th will be the end of me. It waits now in the cellar of the jail, where Collars still believes I can keep it confined. But the first riddle told me I would not see the second dawn. So 2 Inks of Revelation for me to work with. And another revelation. So this is one I could take overnight with me if I needed, but right now we're going to take the Inks of Revelation. So use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Now, here's a question. With my metal, I don't see this being useful for leveling up Quenchings and Quellings or Inks of Revelation. I'm going to need to be a little careful in terms of when I use this, but here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to wait for... I'm going to see if Mr. Kill can give me the relevant memory. If he does, then I level up Quenchings and Quellings and there's no problem. And if he can't, what I will do is I'll use the metal to get a health, which I'll combine with... health, or like a storm or something like that, to combine with the Hindsight, and then we'll level up Quenchings and Quellings that way. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. And actually, I don't have that much time to be able to get my elements back, so... It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones of the beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Ulgrins, I'm very lucky to be where I'm working and with the people that I'm working with. But as always, I was actually talking with someone about this, and I sort of said, you know, I don't always feel that being at a workplace or that, like, or being a good worker or whatever is necessarily always like towing the party line or always saying good things about the employer. Because my view is that places that are good to work, in my view at least, should not be places that shy away from like the hard questions, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, if there is a problem going on, I've certainly worked at jobs where there's kind of this collective agreement to not confront the problem. And what do you think happens? Does the problem magically go away? No, right? But to be able to have either a difficult conversation or to be able to, you know, try and communicate why, you know, certain things are a priority, or, you know, why some people may think that things are going in the wrong direction. You know, to my view, that is part of being a good worker too. You know, I've certainly felt, and again, this may just be an indication of me being lucky in terms of places that I've worked. I hope the places that I'm working care enough about what they're doing that they will be able to accommodate, let's say, kind of inconvenient truths, right? So, you know, if somebody has, like, so I remember there's the old place that I worked, there'd be these, like, huge projects that are just clearly not panning out, but because people's sort of either their reputation or their promotions were sort of hanging on the delivery of this thing, or, you know, hitting some sort of milestone, they were always pushed forward. And it really was not an environment, like, you knew that this is not something that you could say, you know, what are we doing here, right? Like, this is not right. This is a tremendous waste of time and effort. You know, the challenge with that is that you can never really draw that direct line in terms of saying, you know, this was the specific meeting in which all of the really smart people started looking for other jobs, right? But you do wake up one day and you realize that all those coworkers who you really respected are suddenly gone, and all of the people who, you know, aren't, they're like doing the minimum are sort of hanging around. And that is not that is something that really does feed into itself, right? Once you start having that happen, it can be very difficult to try and keep the people you want, because I don't think anybody really wants to go to a workplace and be, you know, not do their best. So, you know, this is why, you know, whenever I talk with people, you know, it's also important to be respectful, right? So, like, if you walk in on, like, so let's just take the idea of the previous workplace, right? If I walked in on somebody who had one of these pet projects that was, like, you know, really, really tanking things, you know, if you walk into their office and you say, like, what kind of an idiot are you? You know, immediately somebody's going to get defensive. And of course you're not going to see any progress there because, now someone's ego is at play. And whenever there is an ego at play, like you just make that problem, 10 times harder. But if you are working with people who, again, care, if you are talking with people who really are committed to making sure that the place can be the best it can be, right? The most productive, doing the best work, whatever it is your particular role has. I've always liked to feel that you can respectfully raise these issues, and at minimum you will be heard, right? It's probably wrong to expect that people are always going to agree with you on this stuff. I am certainly not someone who is right every single time, and I know in some things I can actually be very stubborn. But dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? But if you can create an environment in which those kinds of dialogues can happen, my feeling is that you, the people who are raising the issue, like let's say that the decision maker has made the right call, being in a position to have the conversation in the first place means that the people who are mistaken have the benefit of learning what's going on. And if instead it's sort of everything is kind of ex cathedra, then there's just this problem where, if people already are feeling, I don't know, mistrustful or they're otherwise sort of having difficulty getting on board with some of the decisions, again, you potentially wind up in a situation that can get out of hand quite quickly. So I don't know. Like I said, it's just one of these things where I guess to a certain extent it's almost this this kind of hopeful view in terms of people being adults and being able to to have difficult conversations, to be able to work through things. I think I'm actually short one. I think I messed up. Yep, so I'm definitely going to need one of those elements of the soul, and quick. Yeah, well, that's just it. I mean, one of the articles I've wanted to write is sort of this idea of like stolen bases in terms of some gaming conversations. So like I've noticed a tendency for people whose, at least theoretically, oh, God bless you, Mr. Kill. Some people who it would seem that, they need to... They're really relying on having a very clear-eyed view of the market. Like basically, you would think, looking at where they are, they need to like not fall into certain convenient like convenient stories, let's say, right? So I put it to you this: I'm trying to be careful in terms of exactly the idea that I'm kind of attacking here, but the idea of, let's say, like, follow your bliss, right? It's like, follow your bliss, it's all going to turn out. And you are a game developer, and you say, I'm going to follow my bliss, and it's all going to turn out. This is my mantra. This is how I'm going to live my life. And then you decide to make a first person city builder, or like a or like a cozy MMO that's card based or something like that. Book of Hours, but an MMO. These are not necessarily projects that on their own have a lot of promise, right? And clearly saying, I'm going to follow my bliss is not going to alter the reality that you will be facing on a project like that. And, obviously success depends on your ability to have ambition and to have dreams, while also being able to sort of recognize that there are some very real forces in the world that will conspire to not allow you to do that thing you really want to do. And I think one of the things that has surprised me a lot is this kind of effort to have these stolen bases on certain inconvenient ideas. So for instance, when you run into a lot of AI discussions, and it does bother me a bit how much I wind up talking about the AI stuff. There is an entire branch of dialogue which effectively wants to just declare it illegitimate, and so beyond consideration. But the fact of the matter is that there are now multiple games that have been quite successful that have been able to, at least according to the developers, and I mean, really, these are the only people who have a direct knowledge of what it took to make it. But there are multiple projects which have now very clearly said, without this technology, we could not have done this thing. And I do not want to be the sort of person who says that everybody should go out and use generative AI. I don't think that's a good thing. I think with most people's definitions of AI, pretty much stats is now a subfield of AI. So if you're doing any kind of testing in terms of marketing or something like that, you're probably doing quote unquote AI. But obviously here we'll specifically just limit it to generative AI. But the idea here of sort of saying that this is beyond discussion because it's illegitimate, effectively, I don't really feel is responsible, right? If you are trying to understand what's going on in the world and trying to understand how you can chart your course forward, then I think declaring a game developer that uses it illegitimate or something like that, I just don't see what purpose that's serving, other than maybe to make you feel very good about about being purer than your peers. Now, again, the idea here is I don't think it's the right tool for everyone. I have tried to make this work in a lot of the stuff that I've done. For instance, I tried to use generative AI to do proofreading, thinking that maybe that would help me, with grammar, or maybe it would help catch some of the really embarrassing typos that wind up in the articles or something like that. And it really didn't. There's actually some really bad stuff that passed through. And I do have to wonder if maybe I just wasn't as careful looking for that, thinking that maybe because I was using an LLM, that the really obvious stuff would be picked up. I mean, again, I already had those problems, right? So it wasn't, it's hard to sort of say whether or not that was specifically caused by me relying on the generative AI or not. But the fact of the matter is that I have yet to find an application for myself where I can say, this really made the difference, and I'm adding this to the workflow now. Everything programming wise, it is just not at all worked for me at all. I do not feel comfortable using that to do any kind of code for me. I have tried. And the times I've put it into something that I want to do, I've always found a problem, and they're usually those nasty kinds of problems where they don't fail loudly. So as a consequence, I've really gotten quite suspicious of it. But I think that's different from holding the position that this will never work, or this will never have a place in, ... And I think in particular, because I definitely perceive a very large part of the indie game kind of community's problem to be a productivity problem. I do think it is useful to think of these things as not necessarily, thou shalt use AI, but rather, if we're not going to, how do we get these benefits that this technology seems to be promising, right? Because there's obviously, could you imagine something like Book of Hours being written from an LLM? Clearly not, right? This is a real advantage that Weather Factory has in terms of producing a really unique kind of game, one which is difficult to sort of point to sort of the antecedents. Clearly there are inspirations for these games, but they're ones that don't immediately say, oh, okay, well, this was obviously inspired by Stardew Valley. And there's this really unique and cohesive writing. If you want sort of the designers' opinions of this, they actually do sell a couple of books, both ebooks and physical copies, if you want, on the Etsy store. The Snare of the Tree is the sort of small game design book, whereas the essays are Against World Building and Other Provocations. Both highly recommend. You can also get signed copies of them on the Etsy store, I believe. But, there's the people who've made this game have not made it a secret in terms of what goes into it to make it good. Anybody who kind of wants to see some of the ideas that allow these games to have some of the effects that they do, it is really just it's an essay or two away in some cases. So clearly it would be a disaster to turn around and say, well, okay, let's just get, Claude or Gemini or GPT-4o or whatever it is. We'll just get them to bang out some text over a weekend. That'll be the same, right? No, obviously that's not how that's going to happen. But there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into supporting those words. And if there's an application that the LLM has that can allow them to focus on the thing that they're really good at, keeping in mind that this is a two-person team, this is clearly a very beneficial it would be a very beneficial technology to use. And the thing to me is that right now we're in the millennial lifestyle subsidy era of the technology, right? So if you want game ready assets, something like what's it called? Scenario.gg. That's something you have to pay for now. Or if you want Midjourney, you have to pay for that. But if you want to sort of play around with your own thing, Stable Diffusion is available for free. You can use Copilot if you want to generate images. There are a few different free options, and of course Hugging Face is full of all sorts of different models too. But yeah, to me, this is the time that probably you want to do the real crazy experiments, because it's relatively low cost to use these things. And that's probably not going to last forever, right? Especially if, these companies get to a point where they really do need to start balancing the books. That's probably where you're going to see the fees going up, right? Once upon a time it was, quite cheap to get an Uber, and now it's a little bit more like, it's a little bit more like any other transportation option. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, as I said, it's the article that I wrote on it was definitely not necessarily about AI. It was AI as an illustration of something that people should be considering. But what I do find, the reason why I find it useful to do AI on this side is that when I looked at some people's responses to that argument, it was really heavily focused on the AI examples that I used. And it was almost kind of, I noticed this kind of attitude of like, we cannot allow any positive thing to be said about this technology at all. And it just sort of strikes me as, if you're going to have a conversation about something and you've already decided at the beginning of the conversation that this thing is illegitimate, then there's very little point in having the conversation. There's very little point in reading the article or in engaging with it. And again, if it turns out to be something that isn't helpful, you're fine. But then if it's something that isn't helpful, you don't really need to dig in your heels and refuse it, do you? Right? Presumably it rises or falls on the merits. And again, I don't know how it's going to turn out. It could in fact be a bubble. It could be a really big thing. I suspect probably, like a lot of cases, it'll be kind of somewhere in the middle where it's, it's an improvement. There are some things that are done better as a result of it, but the really extraordinary promises that people are making aren't realized. But the thing for me, right, is so much of that is tied to the share prices of a lot of these different companies, and unless you're a shareholder, a lot of that stuff doesn't really matter, right? What you want to focus on is doing the work, making sure that you're doing the best work that you can, and that you are, you're making something that you are proud of. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to make this such a big rant, but it was kind of something that had been on my mind for a bit. Okay, so what do we want to do today? I don't think it would hurt to go back to the Sweet Bones. I also think it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring in Mr. Kill, given that we are going to be trying to get Quenchings and Quellings leveled up. Speak with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If I don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. Now, again, I do have my book. So I think, what were we at? I think we had Schaller would get me Crack Track. Oh god, I worked this all out last stream, and I think I'm blowing it. So, I think we already dealt with Yvette Southey because she knew Kernwek Henevek. Might be a little helpful if I have the visual aid. So Easton Fekri gave us Mandaic, or Deep Mandaic. Stanislav John Schaller will give me Crack Track. I don't think Douglas Moore gives me anything. Peter Agdistis maybe Fusine? Well, if it is, we've got it. Serena's gotta know a language, but what one? Maybe Fusine if I've already talked with her about it. I guess Stanislav John Schaller also has a Fusine tech. Oh, hello, Ellen Ripley. It's mostly just the idea of kind of like stolen. I mean, it wasn't specifically about AI. I just wound up using the example so much, but it's like the idea of kind of like stolen bases in terms of discussions or arguments. The idea of kind of declaring something illegitimate and so keeping it like out of discussion. It's like, it must be very nice for people to be able, in any topic, right, to just declare someone's or something illegitimate and then be able to just not think about it. But the thing is that there is a real world out there, and it does actually expect you to meet certain expectations. So, declaring that something doesn't exist isn't actually a very good way of making that thing not exist. So that was kind of what I was mostly talking about. Okay, so Sabazine we can get from Arthur Moore. And I think what I wanted was Ramsund, which would be Fraser Strathcoin. And then if I want Kilisimi... Actually, Kilisimi is good for health. And that I can get from Zachary Wakefield. So I think I'm actually going to bring in Wakefield first. Because I don't need to... If I have the extra health, that helps me out. Wait a minute. It was Kilisimi that was the health, right? Yeah, Kilisimi and Bosk. Oh, that's right. You were at a conference. How was Black Hat, Ellen Ripley? All that I've been doing is reading newspaper articles. All right, I'm here. I have enough to craft a letter to an... No, I don't want Eason. I want Zachary. All right, I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Zachary to Brandkrug. So what did Black Hat have to say about AI? I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. Alright. Not quite sure what I'm using the foresight for, if I'm completely honest. More snow. Okay. I may want to see... I wrote an invitation to a visitor. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. Okay, actually, first thing I want to do is just make sure... So as far as rooms are concerned, I don't think anything's changed as far as the... as far as the sky stuff. How bizarre. Apparently a Twitch recap... GIF isn't working, or whatever image isn't properly working. It's messed up my chat. I don't think I have a refresh option, but just give me a second here. No. It was good. Basically, every company lectured or had a booth presence on some sort of AI-powered solution that was essentially just a white-labeled ChatGPT adjacent thing. Got a bit samey, but there were some really cool demos. Did you read about the Copilot exploits? I'll send you an article later. No, I haven't. I mean, like, I'm familiar with like the stuff people have already been talking about. But those are usually... Actually, I guess they wouldn't be Copilot in that case. They would be... they would have been GPT, I guess. But, like, I tend to... I'm, like, out of the loop. So, generally, I hear about stuff after it's been patched out or otherwise fixed. But no, I'd love to read an article. Particularly your articles on these things, as you're a very erudite and thoughtful individual. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Okay. Oh, fun. Let's think about our next steps for books. So I do have Quenchings and Quellings at a higher level, so if I want, I guess there's Ragged Crossroads, which we already have, right? Maybe not. No, there it is. Fairchild. Oh, that's right. I already talked about this. Why is the true history of Valentine de Wolf here? Shouldn't that be Fear? Oh, yeah, that was the fear shelf. Never mind. Actually, that's one thing that kind of interests me, Ellen Ripley, because if you think of it, like, wouldn't it be the case if it's Copilot, you have to attach that to a Microsoft account. So presumably, like, well, I mean, I suppose this is true for a lot of accounts, but like, in the case of Microsoft, because your account is tied to so many other services, like, presumably, if they bring the hammer down on you for doing that exploit, like, that can be very inconvenient. Now, of course, if you're a ne'er-do-well, presumably you don't use like your Xbox account for doing something like that. But I wonder if there's something there about the fact that you have so many things attached to that particular provider that you don't want to mess with it. Well, obviously not. Somebody's already done it, but yeah, fair enough. I think I assume people who can do stuff like that are smarter than me, but then I also notice very wealthy people and how they act on social media. And yeah. Okay, something's going really wrong with my chat. Sorry, I'm going to take a minute here to hit refresh. Oh man, I really gone and done it now. Okay, sorry, just give me a second here. I'm pretty sure I've just lost my chat. So just give me a second here. I'm going to bring it up on Twitch. No, I see you, Algrins. I just need to... I can't use OBS for this anymore. But I should be good. I'm like losing a little bit of information, but nothing too critical. And if you will give me one more minute, I do apologize, but I want to see if I can... I'm going to try one other trick here. I don't think this is going to work, but... All right. So, if I'm going to try and read a book, I wanted to maybe see if there was a Sky book that I could read, but that's not really happening. So, there's the Barrowchild's Elegies. There is the White Book of Brittany. Oh, The World Does Not Weep is an option as well. Oh, Putrefactions and Calcinations. We don't have that. Aha! I do believe I have found my reading material. Okay, so we take the Whist, we take Quenchings and Quellings. We take the Snow. I can master this mystery. Enough winter to match mystery winter. I think my plan B is going to be... Sorry, I realize I'm quite distracted right now. Perhaps my plan B will be to have a tea break. And just see if I can... see if I can get a little more focus. I just got a... This is a little bit different. I just got a message. So, email. So I just want to see if everything's in order. It's I think I know what's going on here, but I want to actually take the time. It's a landlord thing. Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, so basically, I'm sorry to make that sound ominous. So the place that I live, I think, is really trying to maximize its return on investment. So it's kind of asking me about my insurance, and I think what's happened is they've probably partnered with some kind of a company that they're like, oh, we're managing the insurance notes for them, and I think what's I basically think what's happened. So I think they just want to scan the thing, and then of course they just get a bunch of information about my insurance. But so far as I can tell, there's no way to get around it. So I wanted to deal with that. I just needed to make sure. Like, it's one of these things where if I don't deal with it, I'm going to forget. So I figured make him happy, sign away my data like a good a good prole, and live to regret it another day. Okay, my apologies for the distraction. So I have a few options in terms of what to do for today. I am going to send the letter for Zachary Wakefield. So, patience, thus the mountain awaits the fall of the snow, thus Monday awaits the death of the weekend, thus the postmistress waits for me to purchase the necessary stamp. Stamp, envelope, send. Moving on. For quenchings and quellings, I need 4 winter or heart. All right, I appreciate you hanging out, Alan Ripley. I'm sure we'll chat either on Discord or something, but I'm glad that you had a good time at Black Hat, and I actually, please do feel free to send me that information. It does sound really interesting. And whatever other adventures you got up to. Hopefully your personal information is still your own. All right, the postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. So here's what I'm going to do. I don't want to jam up the talk verb too much, so I am going to hire Denzel at some point. But that's not going to be today, so I should be using my metal for something else. And in this case, opening up the investigator's suitcase is the right call. So crack open the container, delight in your discovery. If I recall correctly, I think I was also going to try and advance horns and ivories as much as I could. So that means a lot of knock and scale texts. But I can save that for later. And because of where we're at right now, let's go beachcombing at Crowcross. No, sorry, it should be the other way around. Actually, before I do that, okay, if I need 4 quenchings and quellings, we're going to leave aside the tryst. Okay, this is the 4 that I need, so yes, we are actually going to just sit on our elements of the soul for a little while. Did Zachary receive my invitation? One is instructed to address the letter literally. House, street, town, shire, country. Alright, lots of foresight from Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. I should see if I can read Experiment Beyond Sight, but I'll leave that aside for a little while. Now, I actually should think a little bit here. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So, one thing I'm going to want to do, and I'm going to make a note of this right now, I've got a couple of elements of the soul which I now have potentially in top positions. So one of them will be Quenchings and Quellings, just because I like the idea of having my primary skill being at the top. So that means that can go to the top of Hushery Preservation. The other one, by virtue of the sort of missions that I'm on, is Horns and Ivories, the Hunter, the Way, and Their Memories, which would be Bossk or Skolakosophy. So the reason why I'm taking these notes now is that I may want to think, so like here we've got Inks of Power. Well, maybe Inks of Power gets that top Horamakastri slot if Quenchings and Quellings gets there. So then we're like, okay, Inks of Revelation. Well, maybe that will get Ithistry. So now we've got the Hushery taken care of. And then there's the Nillikant one. It's like, well, the Nillikant one, if we've already said that Hushery's taken up, what was the other side that one has? And I actually don't remember what the other branch that it goes down. But what I kind of want to do here is make sure that if I'm going to be leveling something up all the way, and right now all of these candidates are definitely ones that I think are worth pushing to those higher levels. This is one of these cases where I want to make a note of where they're possibly going to go so that I don't have too much duplication and that I can start directing my efforts towards other branches, making sure that the skills are sort of getting up to the levels that they need to be. All right, so we're going to give Zachary a little bit of time here. We have Libidic Tincture. Now, I think we've been collecting those somewhere. Oh, yep, right up there. So can I rearrange let's take the Bitter Black Salts. That's not the end of the world if that gets eaten. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to remember, why am I keeping my health out like this? Why wouldn't I be making an ink? I'm actually slightly mad at myself for not using this. Couldn't have been to apply scale to something. Yep, I think I was just out to lunch, so we will correct that now. Not all knots are physical. I can brew an ink which ties the naming to the named. And again, I do want to pay Wakefield for the language lessons, but I need a little help from Mr. Kill first. We'll try and talk to Wakefield just before the bells and birds. I am a little worried though that I'm going to wind up wasting the Trist and Foth. Although I guess if I think if we're this close to missing the opportunity, better now. I think I said I was going to double up the Whist, actually. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I think it was a bit of a bust with Mr. Kill. Yeah, gossip doesn't help me. We'll still keep talking, but... Okay, the world does not weep. Brown Joshua found this in a well in Hamath. There is an unlikely story that it was abandoned by Alexander during his retreat from Issus. The unknown adept who wrote this text proclaims, "The world forgets, but the ivory dove does not." The text contains a number of prescriptions for ensuring that certain acts are remembered, including a rite which requires a sacrifice in a particularly monstrous mode. The Hours tried to bury the memory of what happened to the wheel, the flint, the tide, and the seven coiled, but the dove won't permit it, nor will he permit what happened to the first egg to be forgotten, although it is perhaps the one thing the watchman might ever forgive. So we've got putrefactions and calcinations to work with. We've got a hindsight, so kind of good news there, but it's not exactly what I need at the moment. So the obvious first step here is to throw this into the mix. I'm gonna feel particularly bad if the hindsight if the hindsight gets lost. I think in this case we're at midday. I'm not quite so sure we'd have the ink ready in time, so I'm just gonna put this in storage and save my Eigengrau for another day. And I suppose if I'm really stuck, I can say things didn't work out with Mr. Kill, and we just repurposed the whist towards leveling up putrefactions and calcination. It's not the bravest choice that I've ever made, but it's a defensible one. Yeah. I think I'm going to say let's just cut our losses and get the language that we need. So, putrefactions and calcinations, death alters, snow endures. Solomon Husher. Yep. So talk to him. Money? Librarian, I can see you. My visitor can teach me the rudiments of this woven language. After tutoring you, the visitor will leave, even if they arrived on other business. Okay, so because we've put Wakefield into the... actually, hang on. I can use the Tris to level up the putrefactions and calcinations. Because we've got Wakefield taking up the talk verb, we're going to go and check out everything else. So, gather in winter, rhyme rims the moor tarns. Beachcombing. What has the sea seeded today? For putrefactions and calcinations, we can level that up right away. There's always more to learn. And the last question is, what do I want to do with the Faust? So I can give myself an early start on what I would need for... Well, theoretically I would. Let's think about the... Oh yeah, a storm. Easy one. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So this is going to be so that I can have a head start on quenchings and quellings. We'll still probably wind up talking with Mr. Kill quite a bit, but I'll be up a memory for that. Now, the next thing that I want to work out is how I get Denzil in a position to open up some rooms for me. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Might as well use this to make some more money. So for Denzil, starts with 2 forge. Skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Death alters, snow endures. Solomon Husher. So he starts with 2 forged, so we can give him the metal. That brings him up to 4. Then spanners. Foresight. Brings him up to 7. T brings him up to 9. Pretty easy path, actually. In fact, it would have been better for me to keep the foresight. Does not bark. Alexander Probst writes, warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say we'll skip the Foresight, we'll keep the Storm. Our focus is going to be leveling up Quenchings and Quellings to a higher level. And then after that, we will talk with Denzil and try to push him to new heights. Or us to new heights, I suppose. Better now. So yeah, we will start with the Ill-Omen Tower. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. We've got a stray dog. Lost, frightened, eager. Gotta find something to feed them with, but put them somewhere warm. Nope. Doesn't want to go in the... Oh yeah, they don't want to go on top of the librarian's stool. Hello, Cured. Can't stick around, unfortunately, but I hope you have a good one. Got an interview for a new job on Tuesday. Congratulations. Good luck with your interview. More sand. An hourglass, of course, is sand contained by sand. I suppose I should be careful on the congratulations. I've definitely had a couple of times I've interviewed for jobs where the interview has actually shown me that this is the last place I want to be working. So I hope you get the information you need at the interview is probably the better thing for me to say. Cool. If you have any patients who die and suddenly leave you papers... Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Yeah, so I think we're going to do something similar to today. I'm not going to be bringing in a language lesson next time. So we'll talk with Mr. Kill to try and get the memories that I need, and we'll see if we can read certain books, but overall I think we're okay. All right. I've learned enough to puzzle out books in this language, though it might be slow going. Kilisimi. If there is speech in nowhere, if there is a language used by the dead, and if the House of the Moon has a native tongue, then it must be Kilisimi. If none of this is true, it is still not a language to be spoken in daylight. Each word breathes woe. Read it, as they say, and weep. So again, as a reminder, Kilisimi was going to Bosk for health. We can take a look at the two stories. So we've got The Carpenter's Tale. There is a prophecy among carpenters, a master of their kind will resolve unwisely that coffins he shapes are too beautiful to sully with corpses. He will steal trinkets from the dead. He will ask the help of smiths and jewelers. Day and night he will labor to shape something worthy of his work. At last he will tire of his task and offer his breath to the shape in the casket. When it accepts, it will rise from the coffin and pronounce itself king. It will rule by fear, or fear will destroy it. In either case, its maker will have no coffin and no grave, and his name will be lost. Or, there's a prophecy among weavers, one who will unwisely seek to find the future in a tapestry of her own hair. Her house will grow dark, shrouded in the labyrinths of her tresses. Pilgrims will seek her in the cellar of her house, where she will plead with them to cut her free. They will always fail, and she will always devour them. At last, one will come who will ask instead to stay with her. Others will join them until the house becomes a palace, and the palace a city below the world, where all are welcome, and in the tapestry all truths are revealed. Health, the dwelling place of the soul. So this is good just because there's a few different things that I can do with health, but I'm going to... I'm actually trying to think. I guess we've already decided on the book that we've bought. There's nothing that would stop me from being able to bring in another guest, but I think what I'm going to do with my health is I'm just going to make a lot of ink. I'm not planning on doing another salon until we're a little bit better prepared, but what I can do in the meantime is just get the languages that I need learned. Not all knots are physical. I can brew an ink which ties naming to the named. Okay, next up. I'm going to... First of all, I need to get the Kilisimi collection. So we've got the Wound Wounds, the Berry Book, and Deaths of the Moon. Those are all the Kilisimi texts. We're doing pretty well in terms of getting through our book pile. But obviously Wound Wounds is one of the... Actually, it is the biggest one I've got so far. Okay, so the Berry Book. 8 Nectar's a bit of a tall order right now. Got 3, 5 with the Earth Sign, 1 with the Tool. Sorry, 3, 5, 6, 7 with Hell. That's not so bad, but... I guess Deaths of the Moon should go beside Crossing at noon. You know what? Put the Berry Book there as well. Alright. The Berry Book is tempting because it's got leaves and... It's more tempting than 3 Flowers Hath the Tree, which also has leaves and thorns. But, alright. So we want to talk with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If I don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. Now, I guess the reasonable question here would be, what book do I want to read? I could go even higher with the Ivory Book. That's going to be exciting. May not be a bad idea for me to hold back and... So I'm just thinking, one argument for not reading these books is we are crossing over into another season, which again, I'm not expecting a sudden Numa or something like that, but we technically don't know when it arrives. So I also possibly have the ability to get rid of Chionic Theoplasma. 7 heart. We're getting close. Yeah. Okay. There's actually quite a bit for me to think about, but I think most of today I actually think probably should be spent on quenchings and quellings before I do anything else. That means it's a little bit less exciting. So things that I don't really have a whole lot to work with on. Yeah, so the metal isn't really good for any of the places I can explore. So the metal and the Faust are sort of the two, I gotta get something done with this. The Fet and the Trist can at least be used for exploration. And then the health I'm using to make inks. So I think I'm gonna say, let's hold off on reading any more books. I think I'm probably gonna have some trouble with the Ivory book anyway. Let's get my quenchings and my 4 memories for quenchings and quellings. And then we can think about the next steps after. But I am going to take a minute and refill my tea and just otherwise get up and have a stretch. I did empty out the kettle before I started the stream, so I'm going to need a little bit longer to get everything boiled, but I will be back as soon as I can. Now would be a good time to get up, have a stretch, otherwise take care of yourself, and then we will be back for some more, probably some more language learning, to be honest, but we're going to try and start putting a little bit more momentum behind this run. If nothing else, I might actually just sit down and start saying, you know, here are the I don't want to say throwaway, but here are the ones that I'm willing to sort of put at these lower levels as part of the tree. I don't know. We'll think about that. We'll see if that's maybe a thing that's worth doing. Anyways, I will see you all in a little bit. All right, sorry about the wait there. Like I said, the kettle needed boiling. I'm ready to go, though. And let me get chat back. Okay, so here's a little bit about what I've been thinking about as far as the Tree of Wisdoms is concerned. Ah, crumbs. Sorry, my audio's... Hello, Zangief. You're interested in this game but haven't gotten it yet. All right, well, I'm just going to give you a caution that... Sorry, I needed to get my audio back. I am currently playing an early beta of the forthcoming House of Light DLC. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a caution here that there's a couple of things that you may want to keep in mind if this is going to be tilting your purchasing decision. Number one, I'm going to be doing things in this game which are not yet implemented in it, and if you're deciding on picking this up, obviously that will involve an extra... Hello, Delude Daybreak. I'm just doing my little warning, and I will properly greet you in a little bit. So one thing I just wanted to say is, like, so not only is this stuff not fully implemented yet, but it's something that will be an extra purchase on top of the base game here. So I both don't want to mislead in terms of what the state of the game is going to be in a month or so. Well, probably more than a month. I don't want to rush Weather Factory on this. But on top of that, I also don't want to misrepresent what the base game is like. Main question is it worth the price, especially with the DLC coming out? In my opinion, absolutely yes. I have 600 hours in this game already. Now, the thing is that the developer behind this, Weather Factory, makes what they like to call Marmite games. So these are games that have give people very, very strong opinions one way or the other. So people love these games or they hate these games, and they're very unique. So one question I will ask for you, and I'm going to just give a quick shout out to Daily Daybreak while you answer as well. Are you familiar at all with their previous game, Cultist Simulator? And while you do that, I'm going to get a quick shout out for Daily Daybreak. For those of you that like variety broadcasters, Delude came to the channel when I was playing Rift of the Necrodancer, a wonderful game by Brace Yourself Games. And I believe will be published by Clay now. But I happen to know that she also plays Crypt of the Necrodancer, as well as been doing wonderful work with Morrowind lately. Very fun broadcaster to watch. Definitely a really great attitude, somebody who I've had a lot of fun watching whenever I get a chance to stop by. But is also very complimentary on my Dunmer voice. So, you know, I figure that's worth a point or two in the plus column. Anyways, definitely somebody worth checking out. And I have no idea if you've heard of or played these games, Delude, but I think you'd like it. Okay, so the basic idea, what I'm going to do here, this might even be a benefit for the people who are, maybe just in the same boat as you, but maybe not active inside the channel. I'm going to give a bit of an overview in terms of what the main idea of this game is, sort of the story so far, and I'll kind of use that as a way of explaining what all of these different cards are. So the one commonality between Cultist... by the way, you do not need to have played Cultist Simulator to get this. The only reason why I say that is that there was a joke tweet that the developer of this game put out, sort of saying, I should do like a cozy version of Cultist Simulator where you sort of tend an occult library. If this gets 1,000 likes or retweets or whatever, we'll make it. And of course, the internet being what it is, a bunch of people liked this thing, and they're like... I don't think it was, okay, well, now we have to do it. It was more like, all right, there is actually some demand for this thing. Maybe we should think about making this. So... this is a game that is much more relaxed. It's also enormous compared to Cultist Simulator, and Cultist Simulator was already a very big game. But the main idea here is that you wash up on St. Brendan's Cove in a storm. The ship that you were in is wrecked, and you're sort of spat up from the sea at St. Brendan's Cove, with knowledge that you are going to be the librarian of Hush House, Hush House has been abandoned for 7 years since a fire. And you have an acquaintance in town, which in my case was Mr. Kill, the coffin maker. And there's a little bit of a tutorial in the game where you sort of figure out how to get from St. Brendan's Cove to the town and basically heal yourself. But the one possession that you keep after the shipwreck is your journal. And there's a little bit of a personality test that the game gives you at the very start, and it asks you something about these elements of the soul. There are 9 elements of the soul. This kind of has an analogy to the parts of the soul from Egyptian mythology. And by picking particular elements of the soul, so for instance, I chose Whist, name, memory, that part which remains. Most librarians know that books have souls. Most librarians hope for books with simple souls of whist and nothing else. And Fet, that part of us which walks in dreams, one of the 9 parts of the human soul. So this wound up getting me what eventually would become the Silverbound Journal. Now, it wasn't obvious that I had this right away. It took a little bit of effort to dry it out and catalog it, but this effectively gives me the character that I'm playing, the Silverbound Journal. I was rich, but something was missing. I am no longer rich, and still something is missing. Hush House is a place of conclusions, and here, as librarian, I may find mine. The magnate came to the house to conclude a history where they will find peace. But you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Hushery Wisdom. We'll get to the Hushery Wisdom in a bit, but there's also another description here. Memories, the magnate. I've lived too long, but I'm not ready to die. I've tasted everything, and it wasn't enough. Give me silence. Give me peace. Give me the peace of snow. So, again, your job is to be the librarian of Hush House, so you work your way here, and essentially what you do as part of that is you interact. Most of the game is built. So the procedural parts will be how the books are assigned. So every room will have a certain number of books that are in it from certain periods. However, those books are drawn from a deck. So this is a little hard to explain without exploring the house, but in this case here, we've got, you can sort of see the shadow of some books in this room. So when I open up the Ill-Omen Tower, there's going to be some books here, and they're going to be from a certain period of the house. So you'll notice that there's a yellow outline around this room. This is because it's from the Solar Gothic period. From the 11th to the early 16th century, the Sisters and Brothers of St. Brendan's dwelt on the Isle. It was a holy place, a wealthy place, and a center of learning. Though a surprisingly obscure one. Then, in 1534, the Bronze King Henry dissolved the foundation, exiled the Brethren, and gave the Isle to the family de Wolf. So that's, there's a Solar Period book, there's Baronial Period. I'm not going to read every period, but in the 16th century, the de Wolf family became the Barons Brandkrug, governing the Isle as their personal estate until 1759, when their line ended in madness and death. Yep. Exactly. And there are some other ways of generating items as well. So we've been finding some packages inside the house. So one of the packages had, it was Libidic tincture. So right here. Now this is a consumable item, so it's not that it's a bad thing, but it's maybe not as exciting as, in this case for me, the yellowing newspaper. It's dated the year that Hush House was abandoned, and I like the yellowing newspaper precisely because I can get the occult scrap memory, which I find useful for certain things. Sorry, Daily Daybreak. I will respond to those in a minute. I like talking about Book of Hours. So I am a little bit further into the game from the opening here, Zangief. I'll just kind of give you a caution on that. But the main idea is, none of this stuff is opened when you start the game. You have to take the time to open up the bridge and the rooms. And one of the things you very quickly discover in this place is that while it was said that it was abandoned to a fire 7 years before, there actually isn't a lot of evidence of the fire. And as you go through each of the rooms, you can see that there are these descriptions of what's going on. So, for instance, we've got the Watchman's Tower, the Gatehouse. Back in the 11th century, Brian of Brittany built the tower and its gate to protect St. Brendan's Abbey, as Hush House was then known. Later, the Barons de Wolf strengthened the gate against their many enemies. But it's a long time now since Hush House was any kind of fortress, and by the time the scholars of the Curia took possession, this place has long been a comfortable waiting room for visitors to the house too minor to merit immediate attention. So one of the things that you will learn, whereas this room talks a bit about Ava de Wolf, who incidentally we have a bust of, and we place, this is one of the little puzzles inside of the game, is to find the order in which the barons and librarians served the Hush House. So a very large part of this game is exploring the house and learning about what happened here. So you can broadly define it as sort of the baronial period, the dawn period, the curia period, the nocturnal period, the most recent one, and the dawn period, which goes back essentially to Roman times. But on top of that, you are learning a lot of this setting that this takes place in called the Secret Histories. And that is in the books. And there are a lot of books. So even though I've got less than half of the house open, all of these books contain different bits of lore, which you can use to... these, by the way, are the ones that I've put in sort of the too difficult pile right now. These ones I've already labeled. This is the really difficult pile. We'll be reading a couple of books, so I'll explain those mechanics in a bit. But there's sort of a set of different things that you are doing as the player. So first of all, you're restoring Hush House, right? You're taking the role of the librarian as somebody who's a caretaker of this place. And through the process of opening up the house, you are both learning its history, you're learning about previous librarians, and you're also learning about the very special place that Hush House has as what's known as a branch of the Watchman's Tree. But on top of that, as you're sort of repairing the house, you're sort of repairing yourself. You're getting your elements of the soul back, your journal. You're learning a little bit about the special role that the librarian plays in this setting. What is the resource for opening up the rooms? Is it related to understanding books? Indirectly. So there's a few different ways of doing it. We're actually going to wind up unlocking one of these rooms reasonably soon, so I may defer this in detail. I'm sure you've noticed I like giving too much detail, but the basic idea is this. A lot of the puzzles in this game, mechanically, there's a bunch of puzzles that are just about understanding the different fragments that the game is giving you. And of course, because you get different books and different orders, your understanding of the world's going to be different. I did a really, really long playthrough, and even then I didn't have all of the books by the end. So But I'll give you an example here because I'm looking to open up the Ill Omen Tower soon. So the stairway has been chained off, more than chained off. The whole thing is wrapped or swathed in chains. Authoritative sigils forbid entry. So this has, if we click on it, it has the assistance. This is required. So we need somebody to help us open this up. And that person needs to have either 9 Forge, 9 Lantern, or 9 Sky. And you'll notice here that there are some cards that are sort of highlighted when I mouse over them. That means that they have certain aspects. Now in this setting, I've kind of avoided talking about this, but in this setting there are what are known as principles. So if you ever took a philosophy course and you had to hear about Plato and his forms, that's a first approximation of kind of what's going on with the principle. But basically, these fundamental concepts that all of reality is made out of. So lantern, life is a pure flame and we live by an invisible sun within us, Thomas Brown. The lantern is the principle of the secret place, sometimes called the house of the sun, and of the light above it. Sky would be wind, storm, echo, song, the intricacies of mathematics and the principles of flight. Law's touch is lighter than we sometimes think, matters of balance, harmony, and necessity. And it is not coincidental from these names that some of the aspects that you would associate with music, strings and songs, the harmonies of the lower skies, are here reproduced. I think we had another Applebright Euphonies, again, sky, bells and braziers. It's not coincidental that the ones that are music related are sky, right? Now, the game is not explicitly telling you music is, partakes in the aspect of sky. This is an inference that you draw, noting that matters of balance, harmony, and necessity. This is a reasonable description, or the intricacies of mathematics and the principles of flight, however you want to think of it. This is just a reasonable inference that you draw from noticing this kind of commonality and what sky is supposed to be. But the one I'm most interested in is Forge right now. Fire, I once read, is the winter that warms and the spring that consumes. The principle of the Forge transforms and destroys. So here I've got 2 metal, will, self-discipline, that part of us which makes the right choice. Another one of my parts of the human soul. And you can talk to members of the community, Brandkrug Village. Denzil Smith, strong as an oak, blackened by smoke. He will never surpass his father, and he is no longer a soldier, but he still has his craft. So at one point we're going to hire Denzil, and what we're going to try and do is, I happen to know that Denzil starts with 2 forge. I think actually if I... Denzil will talk about practical matters, though he prefers to sit in silence. A shilling will buy his help for a day. Okay, so I'm just taking this from memory, but I happen to know that he has 2 forge, and so starting him off with 2 forge, I'm going to try and use some various resources that I have to try and level his forge up to something that will allow me to open one of the rooms. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm actually going to be using Mr. Kill for other purposes right now. But yeah, essentially the game is a lot about exploration. It's about knowledge, and specifically the ordering of knowledge. And a very large part of this is actually just trying to figure out what's going on inside of Hush House, and ultimately what your role is. The one little hint it gives you in terms of the end of the game is you wind up recording a history. So eventually you learn that there are 5 histories in this setting, and you have a bit of a role in terms of determining how these things are resolved. I'm going to take a quick second here and read Daily Daybreak's messages, and then we're going to unpause the game. It's a really, really special game. I will also say, Zangief, if you are not completely sold on this thing yet, I do have a series. If you want to watch the base game from the beginning, I do have a series on YouTube where I play the artist, and because I play the game quite slowly, it's one where you're probably not going to get too spoiled in terms of the details of the game. But I'm obviously happy to keep... I'm sure you've noticed I really like talking about this game, so... all right, so assistance from Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. Every action that we do is done with elements of the soul. And Delude says, did you know that keeping a journal is an important part of many religions in the Elder Scrolls? Writing down your life is important to so many of the gods, and that's part of why you kept such an extensive journal in the old games. I actually didn't know this. So that's interesting that the journal is a key element in the game that focuses on the aspects of the soul. Yeah, that's actually a connection I did not make, but that's a really, really interesting one, Delude. Because you do get different characters from this. There's like 99 different endings in the game, so... I don't believe it's appropriate to try and 100% Book of Hours. It will take you a lifetime. Actually, no, they changed the save system so that they don't delete the old saves when you commit a history. I guess it's a little easier to do now, but yeah, it is an absolutely enormous game in terms of text. So speaking of occult libraries and drawing things from a deck, I've been playing around with overhauling and refining some of your ideas from way back in high school. How familiar are you with the original series Yu-Gi-Oh? Not at all, Delude. I'm sorry, but do feel free to give me a primer if you are so inclined. All right, so let's unpause and get Mr. Kill in. We still don't know what the weather is for today. Hail! Ice wraps on the roofs and treetops. And I've carried the memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. All right, so one of the things that I'm trying to do today is level up my quenchings and quellings skill. So this is a unique way of handling the game. So rather than having experience points in this game, you get knowledge, right? This is a completely sensible thing to get outside of books. You know, you read a book, you gain knowledge, and sometimes that knowledge is a skill. So in this case, the skill, quenchings and quellings, arts which quench fires and bring solace to the troubled mind. A true adept is never troubled by fire, nor by fever, nor by restless spirit. And so rather than have experience points in this game, how I can level up quenchings and quellings is through memories. So I need to exert part of myself, an element of the soul. I need to have a lesson, so I've got a quenchings and quellings lesson here. It doesn't have to be the same lesson, by the way, it just needs to have one of the aspects. And for this I'm going to require 4 memories, so this storm can be one of them, but because quenchings and quellings is a heart and winter aspected skill, I can't use hail. I also can't use the earth sign or the occult scrap because it's missing the relevant skills. So what I'm looking to get here are 3 other memories. Now there's a couple of ways that I can do that. One, I could read a book which has either the heart or the winter aspect, and that would take up an element of the soul, but I would get the memory guaranteed, basically. And this is in fact how I've organized the library. So this is my regrets shelf as opposed to my hindsight shelf. Oh, lovely to hear, Ether Dragon. I am glad that I can make you happy. But the other option that we have is to talk with our companion, our friend, Mr. Kill, who we started the session off with, and that's going to be what I do. Now, Hail is kind of nice to have, so let's see if there is an edge text that I can read. Oh, did I not read the Leonine Tantra? Oh, that gives me Edicts Martial. Okay, that's a big one. So I'm going to see if I can read this book. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try and read one of the texts in the library that I haven't done yet, the Leonine Tantra. In the most notorious translation of the Leonine Tantra, Ashley Phillips is listed as the translator, but their existence is explicitly denied in the prologue. This confusion is characteristic of books which mention the Great Hooded Princes. Now I'm going to break down what these symbols mean in terms of the game. So this is an 8-edge mystery. So much like opening up the various rooms, I need to try and match up to 8. I need to match 8 edge to be guaranteed to read this text. There are a couple of cases where random chance can help me out with reading it as well. Basically, if you get a certain type of inspiration, you can sometimes read books that are more challenging than what you can handle. This text is written in Sanskrit, so the holy tongue of the subcontinent, the door to 4,000 years of poetry, ceremony, and mystery now opens before you, if you can struggle through the lotus convolutions of its vocabulary. The librarian reads Sanskrit, but don't assume others can. So you start with the ability to read Sanskrit. You can't necessarily read every language in the game. But this is important because if you have a visitor coming looking for a specific type of book, if they don't know Sanskrit, you cannot actually satisfy their need with this text. So that's why the languages are still in the game. Readable, there are worse things to put in your eyes than this. I think you probably understand that. This is a thing. The gentleman makes things his servants. The petty man is a servant to things. Master Zun. Subject Edicts Martial, the precepts of struggle and conflict, which drive the cosmic engine of change, sometimes called the Chorovality. The Chorovality is actually a pretty interesting concept in the game, but shh, we're not going to talk about that yet. We're not going to talk about Fight Club. Scroll, a book with a very long page. This is a Curia period book. In the 18th century, a secretive cabal of scholars established the Curia of the Isle to manage Hush House, making it a haven of knowledge until 1896, when a disgraced librarian brought the house to penury. And this has a tally price of 2, but we already own it, so I'm not too worried about that. So, what I'm going to do here, there's a few different ways that I can read a book, but probably the best way for me is to read it at a desk. So here we have the Vagabond Desk, an elegant relic repurposed by Green for his small and secret war. There's definitely... This game doesn't do slapstick, but it has a wonderful sense of humor. I'll actually give you another example of the humor. By the way, Daylight, I don't know if you're preparing a primer on Yu-Gi-Oh, but I am interested in what you were going to share a little bit earlier. I'll give an example of the kind of humor I like inside of this. But one thing that I can do is if I read a book at a desk, I can bring in tools and inks to help with the reading. So in this case here, I have the option of using my consider verb to read the text, but in this case I would need to do so with a soul skill and a memory. So reading at a desk, as you might imagine, having sort of a focused place where you're doing your study makes it a little bit easier to get the work done. So I'm going to use my metal for this because it has the aspect of edge. All conquest occurs at the edge. One who dwells there is blind and cannot be wounded. Another is strong and grows stronger. And because I've spent a lot of time in this game, I can say the one who is blind and cannot be wounded may be related to disciplines of the scar. To master boundaries through their determination, the scar marks wisdom and regrets. One is often born from the other. So there's the metal. Now I chose this desk because it will accept cards with the edge, knock, rose, and scale aspects. The next thing that I want to do here is add whatever edge aspect I can muster. So in this case, the sharp skill will help me. We're now at 4 of the required 8. So now we add the hail. And we're still 1 short, so I could give this a try, but I do have a couple of things that will give me edge. So there was a tool that I had, which was the Cucurbit Barrette, a vessel with an ambiguous history. I also have a saw, which, as you might expect, has edge as well. Eternally useful, though not for most librarians most of the time. We'll put the Cucurbit Barrette in. But because this has the tool aspect, and again, if you're ever uncertain in terms of what you can put in inside of the desk, there's a little guide here. In this case, it says required and forbidden, so I can't put something fatigued in. Here we add the Cucurbit Barrette. Edge, a conquest. I can master this mystery. Point being, I'm playing with the idea of a bit of fanfic where one of the spirits who was unable to enter the afterlife has gradually been losing more and more of his soul as he wanders the earth, but then he is drawn to a girl who has been studying occult matters. As it turns out, she's the daughter of the same character. Oh. Who was that? Zangief, thank you very much for the follow. Sorry, I lost my chat window earlier in the stream, so my stream is covered up. Thank you very much for the follow there. Turns out she's the daughter of the same character that his spirit was originally bonded to. Again, I should probably read up a little bit on Yu-Gi-Oh, but this is an interesting idea, and actually one that is somewhat related to a few ideas that are present inside of Book of Hours. So if this is if these are themes that are of interest to you, this is good stuff. Okay, so we're going to spend a few minutes reading the book. I usually just let these run and then I read the text afterwards. That gives you a bit of an idea in terms of how you get stuff done inside of the game, right? It's a combination of your natural capabilities, your elements of the soul. As it describes it here, the human soul is composed of 9 elements, and this is one. Most other things have simpler souls. Each soul card can be used once a day for the kind of things that you do with your soul. Excuse me, that usually means talking to people or crafting. Skills. So in this case, a skill, anything can be learnt, everything can be forgotten. There's also things related to the Tree of Wisdoms here. I'll talk about the Tree of Wisdoms in a little bit. And then, what was the other bits? Oh yeah, possessions. So there will sometimes be cases where you can feed people things. So for instance, here we've got Solomon's preparation. Solomon's last name, Solomon Husher, would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January, 1838, a heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He had left a resignation letter and an undrunk measure of his preparation. So given that it's the creator of this potion's name is Solomon Husher, I like to call this Preparation H. When you use a card, do you burn it? Like, will you still have a hail card when you finish the book? Memories are consumed, but not everything gets consumed. So generally, tools are not consumed, but consumables like drinks, like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think. Drinks, memories, some followers for some things. There are one-use items called devices. There are a few things that'll be single-use only. So the game is pretty clear in terms of telling you what does what. But in the case of the hail, because I used this memory in the reading of the book, I'm going to lose that in this case. But that's fine because the weather goes away at the end of the day anyway. So it's kind of a consumable item that I want to use. All right, Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. The Coffin Maker's Assistants, a tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the sorts of mysteries that you'll deal with inside of the game, but I'll just draw your attention to something here. So it's worth mentioning when it says there are very few lines that are just sort of things that you can throw away. So we kind of know as an Undertaker, he's got the winter aspect, right? Winter is the principle of silence, of endings, and of those things that are not quite dead. But when it says he's been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry, this explains the sky aspect that he has. Wind, storm, echo, song, the intricacies of mathematics and the principles of flight. Law's touch is lighter than we sometimes think, matters of balance, harmony, and necessity. And it does happen to be that there is a minor puzzle, but there's one in terms of trying to get introduced to another person. And it does mention that this person is interested in poetry, and that's just a little way that the game sort of tries to nudge you to say, hey, have you considered, using this person to talk to them? And then, in any case, we're going to try and get some memories, and in this case, we'll do that by talking with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. And to learn the game, there are usually instructions inside of the square brackets, or I can click on the collaborate slot here, and then it'll tell me what I can collaborate with. So elements of the soul, beverages, memories. Mr. Kill is unique in the sense that he can also work with wood, sustenance, and tools. In this case, we're just going to have a chat. Okay. Now, today's going to involve some waiting, and that's just because I want to see what Mr. Kill gets me in terms of memories. So we're not going to be opening up the Ill-Omened Tower. We're going to do that tomorrow. My main focus right now is to try and level up Quenchings and Quellings, and right now I'm just going to try and talk with Mr. Kill to get those memories, and if it doesn't turn out, I will... I'm keeping these in reserve to sort of read the relevant books. Oh, I also forgot. There's a reason why I talked to Mr. Kill first. I wanted to restore my whist. So, we're at the Sweet Bones. The Sweet Bones has been the public house in Brankrug since Cromwell's time. Its history is notable. Its history is notable. Its beer is not. Guests looking for discreet employment or discreet assistance congregate in the snug. Rest and refreshment. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. So, this game uses a sort of made-up fantasy currency known as pence, the eccentric currency of a fallen empire. 1 penny is 4 farthings, 12 pence is 1 shilling, and so on. Shilling? 12 pence, or if you prefer 1/20th of a pound. Half crown, 2.5 shillings, obviously. A crown is 5 shillings, 1/4 of a pound, and 1 pound note, notable paper in soothing green. Britannia lounges on her throne, a flaming hammer propped insouciantly across her knee. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the Sweet Bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. All right, so you may notice that when we talked with Mr. Kill, this card vanished, and it just happens to be that he gave me the same memory that I had before. Unlucky, but there you have it. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? 6 but none the richer. So, time does go by. You can speed up the game, but again, my pace is glacial. So, we're just passing from dawn at the time. This time, the Sisters of the Abbey. We've already passed, so now we're in morning, the 3rd hour, when the office of, I think it's Tercy, once was sung. Watch as the day opens like a door. This is a very good game for feeling hungry. All right, some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of Peribiot ink, but they haven't lived at Hush House. So Peribiot, which binds to one whose name is there written, a minor ink of power. So I've been making a few of these just because I found them helpful for the invitations. Now the invitations are something that is new in the House of Light expansion, so the reason I'm making the ink... There are other reasons to make the ink inside this game, but the specific reasons I'm making the ink are actually related to something that's special. I was at 600 hours, but only made it to level 2. Well, I've got 600 hours in the game and have completed the game and have a couple of other playthroughs on the go. But yeah, I suffice to say, I know what is behind all of these doors. Tuppence is shorthand for 2 pence, if anyone remembers Mary Poppins. Yes, actually, I think it also describes it inside of... we also have the threepence in the game, but not currently in my inventory. And I can't remember what play it was from, but I distinctly remember a reference to half a sixpence, which is a long way from saying 3 pence. Yeah, we have all of those coins are present inside the game and have their own descriptions. Again, the sense of humor comes through, right, with a half crown. 2.5 shillings, obviously. The funny thing is, I am actually a bit of a nerd for coins. I'm enough of a nerd for coins to know that being a nerd for coins is being called a numismatist. Or numismatics. Study of coins. There you have it. All right, so we're going to go to the kitchen range. Again, I want to make another pot of ink, so we can use weaving and not working. Valentine DeWolf. We'll use our health for this. Skill without effort is like tea without boiling water. No one wants to eat tea leaves. There's potential here. For apprentice level heart recipe, provide 5 heart. For a scholar level recipe, provide 10 and a suitable ingredient. Keeper level recipes need 15 and something uniquely specific in each case. So we've already got, we've seen a couple of the items that we can make here, but what I'm specifically looking for here is Peribiot. And in this case, I'm just short the 1, so I could get a memory. I could use this storm, for instance. But it's easier for me to use the kitchen bowls because we are currently at the kitchen range. So if I take the kitchen bowls, cake time! There we go. Not all knots are physical. I can brew an ink which ties the naming to the named. I think the coinage adds a lot of character to the game, and it really helps highlight the time, even if it is an alternate history. No, I agree. I feel you are all too witty for this hour of the night for me. All right. So I'm going to try and get my health back. One way I can do that, librarians are prone to backache, and the mattress here has always been a hard one, even in Westcott's time. Add a fatigued soul card to nap, a maladied soul card to cure it, or, once night has fallen, a memory to dream on it. Rest, I could settle in for a nap with a cup of something warming, or a glass of something soothing. So for that, we will use the copious amounts of Eigengrau I have, if Grey Dawn oil were drinkable. So really you can put any drink. You could also put laundry. All right, basket of clean linen. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. So that's going to take 90 seconds to restore my health. And this is just because I can kind of get ahead of making all of this, this ink that I find so useful. But again, our primary goal is still to get quenchings and quellings leveled up, so we're still trying to shake our friend Mr. Kill down for some memories. And if we start getting sufficiently late in the day, I'll start using these elements of the soul to generate the memories that I need. Right now we're just kind of working in the sweet bones to make a little bit of extra money. Why not use a skill or soul with your nap? What's the trade-off? Well, in the case of the nap, I don't really need to use it. So in this case here, what's happening is that every time I perform an action, I exhaust an element of the soul. I actually thought Delude Daybreak made a really good analogy here where people sort of talk about having enough spoons to do things, and this would be sort of an example for somebody maybe with chronic fatigue or just in general somebody who finds it difficult to perform certain actions, and this is kind of a way that they can sort of make sense of this idea that you need to sort of ration out your your energy or your whatever it is. Again, the purpose of the analogy is to try and help people to be able to explain what's going on. And so in the case of the elements of the soul, because I only have so many of them, I kind of need to choose a specific number of actions that I'll perform over the course of the day. And so because I used this health to brew the ink, that's currently exhausted. So one way I can get it back is by having the beef and potato pasty in the sweet bones. That'll cost me 2 The other option that I have is to take a longer period of time. This takes 30 seconds longer. But if I take a rest in bed with something comforting to drink, or any other sort of comfort, I can restore an element of the soul that way. So that way I can get a little bit more out of the resources that I already have. And so in this case here, because I'm trying to restore something, I didn't need to use a skill. But in most cases, if I want to try and make something, I'll use a skill. And as you can imagine, inks of power are going to make inks, whereas something like bells and braziers would wind up making music. All right, better now. So what I like to do over the course of a day is usually just go to the sweet bones and either make some money or restore an element of the soul. And then at the end of the day, I use the last element of the soul. So the Sweet Bones has been the public house in Brandkrug since Cromwell's time. Its history is notable, its beer is not. Guests looking for discreet employment or for discreet assistance congregate in the snug. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Another option that I have is to hire someone. So assistance from a fisherman. In winter, when the storms close the seas, the fishermen will offer their services for $1 a day. Fishermen offer moon and a little sky. Alternatively, add a soul card to find rarer guests who might be seeking employment. But in this case, I already know that I want to hire Denzel, so we're just leaving that aside. But yeah, for now, I'll do the help with letters. All right, so we've got gossip, frivolous but tasty. This doesn't help us with quenchings and quellings, so we'll talk with Mr. Kill again. And we are at the halfway point of the day, so there's a side of me that says that maybe I'll use the whist to get a couple more books. But, like I said, I did want to read the Leonine Tantra first. So once we read that, I'll have a clearer idea of what I need to level up certain things. All right, another Peribiot. Getting a nice little stock here. I could craft the invitation right now if I wanted, but... Alright, Edge a Conquest. So we'll read the description again. The Leonine Tantra, in the most notorious translation of the Leonine Tantra, Ashley Phillips is listed as the translator, but their existence is explicitly denied in the prologue. This confusion is characteristic of books which mention the Great Hooded Princes. The Tantra describes elliptically the Great Hooded Princes and the multitudinous ways in which they influenced wars against foreign invaders of the land of the Great River, although, in a sense, they were also invaders. Lions can be created, not as children are created, nor as words are created, but as weapons are created. The Great Hooded Princes learnt to create lions from their spyings on the affairs of the hours, and not all lions now serve the Golden General. So I hope that's perfectly clear. We got Edicts Martial for that. Of course, we knew that was coming. And fear. So the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Lovecraft. So I'm just going to put a little note here. So one analogy that you might draw would be that some of the lore of this game is a little bit like Dark Souls, in the sense that sometimes implication are the lessons you learn usable in some way. Absolutely. So all of the lessons that I've been using so far, like weaving and knot working, which I've been using to make these inks, that was something that I got out of a book, but I'm actually going to show you how I work with Edicts Martial right away. I just wanted to take a minute here and just sort of say that there was a mention of the Great Hooded Princes, just to give an example in terms of sort of how you start drawing the connections. 108. Ava DeWolf discourses on the fifth history, and particularly on those who are said to have passed over from it, the Great Hooded Princes, the Knocklong who ascended under the Mother of Ants, but now, so Ava claims, honored the Horned Axe. So in this case here, obviously as somebody new to the game, you know, Great Hooded Princes, histories, all of this is utterly meaningless. But to somebody who's already read a few different books, we know that there's at least some kind of a connection in terms of discussing a topic. And if you wanted to know more about the Great Hooded Princes, maybe you would reread 108 when you get a chance. So, learning the lessons. So what we're going to do here is, if I want to gain... So I could use this to level something up, but Edicts Martial is actually a very helpful skill. So I'm going to add that to my, my sort of skill inventory here right away. We'll use the consider verb, examine, appreciate, catalog, acquire Edicts Martial. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Now, Quenchings and Quellings doesn't take advantage of edge or scale, so in this case we'll use this fear to level up Edicts Martial when the time comes. And Edicts Martial uses edge or scale. Sorry, that's fear. So Edicts Martial uses edge or moon, so I'll use the Tryst to improve that, but we'll get there in a minute. Okay, intuition doesn't do anything for me. We're getting very unlucky with Mr. Kill and his assistants, but them's the breaks. Once this Eigengrau is done, we'll, the restoring, I mean. I deserved a little quiet time. We'll use this to make another ink. There are definitely other things I can do with it, just it's nice to have the reserve of ink for reasons that I will demonstrate momentarily. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. All right. Oh, I should have restored. Sorry, I meant to restore rather than double that up. That's fine. We'll still be able to get through it. Okay, so we've now acquired Edicts Martial. The precepts of struggle and conflict which drive the cosmic engine of change, sometimes called the Chorality. So we have a second lesson here. So as I said, if I want to level up a skill, we need to put effort, a lesson, and memory in. So we have the lesson, Edicts Martial. We already have fear. I could also use the intuition in this case, but I'll use the fear. And then I don't have any edge. We used up the metal to level it up, and the other one that has edge is Arab, which is currently an element of the soul that we don't have. But I can use my Tryst because that has the moon aspect along with Moth, the change and the longing. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2, which will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. So we'll talk about the Tree of Wisdoms in a minute, but I want to see what Mr. Kill gets me. Revelation. Some truths come to us from outside or above. And that has the lantern aspect. So Mr. Kill has not given us any of the memories that we need. I think what I'm going to do here, so we're going to need the Whist for quenchings and quellings. So I'll use the Fet, the Faust, and the Tryst to level... to get the memories that I need. But I also need to get another... I need to get this Whist back. I kind of threw off my numbers by using that to earn some money. Okay, so the aspects have gone up, which now means that it's a little bit easier to do the crafting, as the game said. So in addition to using this to craft certain things, there is the Tree of Wisdoms. Now this looks slightly different from the base game. Yeah, no worries, Zangief. If you haven't already, I definitely recommend wishlisting the game. I think there is a release date for the... there's a release date for the DLC. Let me just take a look here. 26th of September. Good God. Oh, God. They have so much work to do. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, the game's likely going to go on a sale when the DLC comes out, so I can sort of see why that would be something you want to hold off on. I will also mention, too, one thing that may help you out in terms of your decisions, at least as far as Cultist Simulator was concerned. You know how on Steam... I know it's on GOG as well, but I'm going to assume that you're buying on Steam just because it's the one that I know a little bit better. For Cultist Simulator, they released different DLC after the release. But there's a bundle version of Cultist Simulator. So if you bought Cultist Simulator and then you sat on the DLC until like they were all out, or maybe you bought one of the DLC and then you just waited on the others, I believe if you buy the bundle, it just fills in the ones that you don't already own and applies the discount. So if you want to dip your toe in, see if Book of Hours is your sort of thing, and assuming you don't return it within the 2-hour refund window, you are not missing out if you decide, I want to see if I like the base game and then get the bundle. You can still get the discount. So I know for some games they don't do it that way, but I know for sure in terms of Cultist Simulator they did it that way. So I would be shocked if they didn't do the same for Book of Hours. Anyways, I was talking about, I know you gotta go, but basically the Tree of Wisdoms, if you want to get more elements of the soul, committing them to the Tree of Wisdoms is how you do that. But there's also lore that is revealed, so I'm going to shut up about this for a little bit. But thank you very much for hanging out. I appreciate your questions, Zangief, because I'm sure there are a few people who are curious and I've been neglecting them. So it's always nice to be able to have some back and forth with people to talk about the game and see what's going on. Man, Mr. Kill's really letting me down. Again, we'll be fine. Like, we just spam a whole bunch of whole bunch of memories in the last hour of the day, but I was kind of hoping to use the Tryst and the Fett to investigate the moor and the beach. And again, I'm happy with the ink stock that we've got here. Okay, so I'm going to restore this one. So this will be the one that I level up Quenchings and Quellings with. Okay, at this point, I think it makes sense for us to just lock in the remainder. So we need 3 memories. We'll start with the Whist here. And with that, we'll take the Hindsight. So we'll read Introduction to the Histories. And then for the Lantern, we will read using Faust at the... the Pale Desk. Solomon Husher himself commissioned this from Lockwood Fen Bogu, blackened and half fossilized by centuries underwater. Here at this desk, he wrote his doomy allegory of winter and its romance with the sun. When he blotted the last word on his manuscript and rose from his work, the timber had turned pale as fresh-cut maple, or so the story goes. So I have a few options. We need Heart or Winter, but I figure Regrets is not a bad way to do it, so we'll read Lady Ava's Repose. Sorry, we need 4, so we've got 3 of the 4 that we need. So I either need another Winter or I need another Heart. And in this case, I think Salt makes the most sense because we know Mr. Kill won't double that up. So in this case, we will use the Rose at the Vagabond Desk. And we will read The Sea Does Not Regret. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Finally, I'm going to use the Tryst at the beach. And we can still talk with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So, don't exactly need the fear, but at this point, it's all about what we're going to be keeping overnight. So I'm not too torn up about that. Okay, and there's nothing else. Oh no, hang on. Yes, we can't use that Whist, otherwise I'm going to lose my. I'm going to lose my ability to level up Quenchings and Quellings. So I'll just wait out the day. All right, we've got some stories to tell. So, Introduction to the Histories. The 17th century mystic and antiquarian Claude Hersault describes divergent incidents in 5 major histories. The prologue warns at length against the iniquities of one Julian Cosley, a former colleague who Hersault now describes darkly as a worm of worms. It seems Cosley advised Hersault early in the writing of the book, but Hersault later became suspicious. Hersault identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories and claims the so-called second history is the true one. So we get hindsight for that. Some things we can only really understand when they're gone. Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation on the drowning of Lady Ava de Wolf and her 2 grandchildren, written in the years when the estate was abandoned by Father Theo, once the de Wolf family chaplain, one of the few to remain on the isle in those desolate years. There are so many stories of her heritage, so many rumors of her persistence, we might easily choose to believe that the grand twins escaped, even that they live yet beyond the sea. Father Theo has come to believe that Ava sought an escape from the family curse, the pale heritage of Hafren, her forebear, or the curse placed on her line by the cunning man Red William in the time of Hendrik de Wolf. He had begun by believing neither curse was real, but as the book concludes, he decides that he is determined to believe in them, rather than to accept the 3 deaths as a futile tragedy. One does not so easily escape the long necessity of faith, he concludes. Regret. Every choice has its shadow. And the sea does not regret. Isen Fekri, one-time Secretary Solvent of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide has passed, it leaves traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. And salt, sea spray, depth sorrow, which has knock, moon, and winter. Okay, so armed with those memories, we're going to level up Quenchings and Quellings, which is the last of the memories I currently need. And finally, we apply our Whist. So satisfying to have come so far. Improve the skill to level 5. Alright, so we got a stolen secret from Mr. Kill. We can keep talking to him. Really what we're looking for right now would be anything that can be used in the librarian's quarters, but given that we're going to be talking to Denzil and using him to open up one of the rooms above, I'm just going to sleep on the foresight no matter what. I didn't really need to talk to Mr. Kill, but there you have it. Gave me another foresight. Okay, we got more sand. So I actually don't remember if I talked about this before, but I was thinking a little bit about this idea of trying to go really deep down the tree of wisdoms, and or in terms of skills, and there is a little bit of logic behind it. But the thing to remember is that if I neglect the lower level skills, one of the things that's going to happen is I'm going to run out of elements of the soul. So I still don't have Arab, for instance. So with that in mind, I'm probably going to try and divide my attention between the two priorities. I will definitely try and get some superstars moving up. So something like Edix Marshall, for instance. But I want to be kind of careful that I'm not overlapping too many things. So for instance, Edix Marshall, if I bring that to the very top, that means that I may have to decide, okay, Inks of Power, that can't be Horomachistry anymore. Okay, well if it can't be Horomachistry, then it has to be Hushery. But then that means Quenchings and Quellings now needs to be Preservation. And as it is, Preservation doesn't have something accounted for it yet. But you can see how these potentially have knock-on effects. So Denzil will talk about practical matters, though he prefers to sit in silence. A shilling will buy his help for a day. If you give him occult coinage, he will perform the service of division instead. Assistance from Denzil the blacksmith. What do you need? Okay, cloudy day. I think we're still moving into spring. There we go. Alright, what's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? And the yearly stipend from St. Ronwin's has arrived, along with the usual rather sniffy reminder that I should spend it wisely. Denzil is now a member of our party. Denzil the blacksmith will lend me his strength for the day. So 2 forge, 2 edge. We'll start with foresight. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. Alright, an iron spentria and a 1 pound note. We still want to see who arrives at Brandkrug before I send off any letters. I may want to decide on a book to read, so the Clouds doesn't really give me too much. Well, let's not fully abandon it. Let's say, so if I did Crossing to Noon, 3 moon, 4 moon, 5 moon, we could get up to 6 moon. Not quite enough. So what about the Mothi texts? We basically don't have any. Yeah, so we have History to Eternity. So, as a hypothetical, let's just see what I might try to do here. So I think the big drawback is that we have better... Like, we have better memories to employ than the Clouds. But again, just for the experiment. So Inks of Revelation would be the... We can do better. Yeah, Edicts Liminal. And then the Shears. I mean, 8 out of 10 isn't terrible. But yeah, we're not going to use the Clouds to read the book. Which suggests to me that we should probably be considering a new skill to level up. Actually, I want to look into this manuscript writing business. So, let's say we put the health down. Interesting. So I'm trying to think how I would craft a manuscript if it's not putting down paper and ink. Oh, here we go. Write a Horns and Ivory's manuscript. Oh, interesting. Knowledge pursued through paper's labyrinth, pinned with ink darts. This manuscript will satisfy Scale and Horns and Ivory's interest from visitors. Skill level will determine the manuscript quality, but books have souls too. Using an ink with a scale aspect will effectively double your skill. Okay. So this is important because this means that I don't need to invest as heavily into Horns and Ivories, which is good. We actually basically just need to get it to the Quenchings and Quellings level. So I think that's going to be a smaller goal that I go towards, which is to try and write that manuscript. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made the difference for the day. So let's talk with him about metal. Inspiration and determination boosts Forge and Edge. Should probably make a call in terms of which of these I'm reading. So if I cut it in half, if one of the... So one memory goes to the Serpents and Venoms, and then one goes to Horns and Ivories, and then one goes to Coil and Chasm, and then one goes to Horns and Ivories. That seems like a decent way to... Yeah, that seems like a decent way to kind of have it both ways. So if I read the Tantra of Worms, we would do Health. Pentiments and Precursors is my highest scale skill. We would add the Hourglass. Ooh. Looks like I'm one short. So if I add the Earth sign, I still need another scale. Okay, well that's not going to be too tough to get. I guess the question is, do I want to try and get that through conversation? What would my alternative be? Well, we can't do the forge texts. Okay. So we don't have a use for the Faust right now. So I'm going to talk about... Actually, you know what? I'll just use the Earth sign in this. Oh, right. No, I'll still use the Earth sign, but... Okay. So health, Earth sign, Pentiments and Precursors, Feats and Fights, and for Forgotten Things, the Carapace Cross, the Line of Antaios, the World of the a Low Red Sun. Though much is taken, much abides. Use my own tears to trace a sigil of regret. Not quite ready for that. Serpent-styled glass, carved snakes writhe down the frame. A prominent inscription reads... Oh, you know what? No, I don't even need to leave this to chance. We just use one of my inks. So yeah, let's read the Tantra of Worms. The entomologist Juliana Załatowski eventually came to insist that this text was written by insects inhabiting human skin. She never presented evidence for her claim. There are diagrams. The diagrams are not good to look upon. Scale unearthed. I can master this mystery. Enough scale to match mystery scale. So if I'm gonna try... Okay, so I'll need to leave a... You'll have to leave a moon aside. Well, but we can use the cloud. Okay, yeah, no, we'll be fine. But I am going to use a whist to get the Earth sign back. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. And I guess, seeing as I did use the... I'm actually starting to run out of the Eigengrau, but... I did use the health for the book, so... Or the ink for the book, rather. Lala Kamiya, Huntress, Gourmier, Occasional Bureau Consultant. When it can't be killed and it really needs killing, Kamiya's the one they turn to. So she knows Crack Track. I think she's in my book already. Nope. Okay, definitely someone we want to make happy then. I'm going to make a note here in terms of what she likes diet-wise. Also, I think it might be Lala Kaima? Lala Kaima? Oh, you'll like the Swaddled Thunder once you find out what it's for. The way I've played, it makes the Swaddled Thunder a little hard for me to get. Not impossible, but... right, is there someone en route to Hush House? So this is about the affair of the second skin. Immortals change more slowly than most of us, but even immortals change sometimes. In the city of Marrakesh, the Labite Abacassis has begun a dramatic and dangerous metamorphosis, one that is alarming friends and enemies alike. Alright, our course is fixed. Let's keep leveling up Denzil. So we'll give him the spanners this time. When you need them, you need them. Lend my assistant something to help increasing his abilities. Also, the Swaddled Thunder makes a very satisfying thump sound when you drop it. Okay. One last step, we're going to feed him some tea. So this is the Veiled Goddess Lapsang Suchong, named for an enigmatic minor deity whose charge is the healing of burns. 2 forge, 1 sky. A nice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. So we still have plenty of elements of the soul to run with today. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of the secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe and in Egypt and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and Sybil, but includes both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and the skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. Okay, so that was just to replace the earth sign that we had already lost. I can use the Whist to generate other memories if I need, but we don't need right now, so... And again, we are going to satisfy Lala Kaima, so we'll save the conversation for the end of the day. I'll mine Denzil for memories. He seems like a talkative sort. Down to the Grussians. Speak to Denzil, he might even reply. So again, we're going to use Denzil to open up the ill-omened tower, but I'm not in a rush to get those particular books, seeing as we have plenty that we can work with down here. I have been keeping my balance in terms of the elements of this, or the skills and the elements of the soul, but... Okay, so we did this because I want to keep making Peribiot. I should probably make some Catwink next, but... I know I'm going to call in Fraser Strathcoin before too long. And the Tantra of Worms. The Tantra explains various less than practical countermeasures against the worms, these serpents which are not serpents. Moth and Winter are closest to them, and so understand their weaknesses, but both have their own perils. The Lionsmith crushes them, but that's not recommended for mortals. The worms have always been eager to inhabit us. Here are the practices which make us inhospitable to them. There are diagrams. The diagrams are not good to look upon, and none of the practices they show would allow the subject to survive. So this is also a fear text, and this gives us 2 Coil and Chasm. So let's first of all add this to the fear shelf. Quite a bit of those. Next up, let's level some things up. So, move like so. Okay, so Serpents and Venoms can go up with 1 moon. We'll get that out of the way now. No, hang on, we haven't read Serpents and Venoms. So it's Coil and Chasm, Witch's Scale, and Nectar. That has to use... Oh god, okay. That's tough. I didn't really think of what the Coil and Chasm implication would be here. So I'm going to cheat. We're going to use Serpents and Venoms in this case with Coil and Chasm. So I can use the Cloudy Day. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches on the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. And then I'm going to use the Sweet Bones to restore some health to let me level up Horns and Ivories. Coil and Chasm will do in reverse, so we'll use the Hissing Key. He does a lot with silence, this man. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. Skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So, Serpents and Venoms, there are the mother's... these are the mother's neglected children, and we prefer they pass not through any door. Okay, let's say... I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to do with the Trist and Fet. So we're going to try and level up Horns and Ivories, but we will use our health for that. So if I could find another way of getting to scale overnight, that would be helpful. But I just don't think that's practical. So the Hissing Key, we're going to use this to level up a... Oh, I could try and get a Nectar memory, though. Okay. So I am going to investigate Crowcross Sands. Gather in spring, the gorse is bright on the land's nape. I think the Fost I'll use to generate a memory that I would want to take overnight. So then the question is, what do I do with the Whist? It's a little late for me to try and generate any memories. I could investigate part of the house, I suppose, but I think I'll probably just make money. Unless I think I can... Actually, I can craft something. Maybe another Eigengrow? Still a kind of possibility. Beautiful. Denzel gave me exactly what I needed. Okay, so I think we're ready to talk with the visitor. There are things I need to know. Yes, I am here about this trouble in Marrakesh. No one was paying me, not this time. I knew Abulcasis once. I will help him if I can. I will put him out of his misery if I must. I hope Abacassis can still be reasoned with. If not, I must be ready. So Lala Kaima, or maybe Haima? I don't know. Understands Aramaic, Crack, Greek, and presumably English. Sun's Lament seems to be the best option. So wish me luck, librarian, but not too much. This hunt this time, perhaps I would prefer it to fail. And in the meantime, we'll open up the ill-omened tower. The stairway has been chained off, more than chained off. The whole thing is wrapped or swathed in chains. Authoritative sigils forbid entry. Now this isn't the only thing that we're going to use Denzil for. Actually, I also want to see if we can hire a miner. I'll wait for the sweet bones on that. But we will also want to open the broken bridge. And then we may, with Lantern, we may also have other things we want to try and open. That'll definitely be for another day, though. So now I gotta think, what am I trying to do with my Faust for the closing moments of the day? Probably just make money. I'm refreshing, right, because I want to make a... Oh no, I want to level up Coil and Chasm. Okay, better now. So, Coil and Chasm, or Horns and Ivories, rather. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches on the Tree of Wisdoms. I was going to end with today's work, but because I messed up with the Serpents and Venoms, I'm actually going to go until I finish reading the Hissing Key. The reason for that is I want to make sure that I level up Coil and Chasm and Horns and Ivories. Alright, the surface of the substance is difficult to resolve, almost as if it weren't there at all. Got a Bronze Spintria. And a calling card. So as always, we'll just hang on to that until we know what we want to do. Alright, Kaima. Lala Kaima set out to end Abacassis' misery, although her ultimate intention remained uncertain, even to her. So, the church tower. The bells in this tower rang every Sunday, even in Solomon Husher's time, until Thyrza Blake finally cancelled services so she could save money by sacking the priest. This brought a deputation of angry locals from Brankrug village, where there was a fearful superstition that when the bells of Brankrug fell silent, the bells of Ys would be heard. So there's a few different items inside of this room. So first of all, the mop and bucket, galvanized steel, enriched with the stains of a dozen years of methodical mopping. 3 Dawn Period books, another pot of Veiled Goddess Lapsang Souchong, and the cup. This is going to take 10 forge, so we're 1 short on what we need right now. If we can find forge food, great. Otherwise, I'm going to need to find some kind of metal to give to... Yeah, Daily Daybreak. I hope you don't feel like you were... like it was unwelcome. I'd be delighted for you to share that more inside of the chat. But if you would like, I realize that a live stream is not always the best environment for this. So if you would like to DM me on Twitch, if you're on Discord, anywhere you think would be good to talk, I would genuinely like to hear. I don't know if you've seen him inside of the channel, but Vesper Fortune's actually a writer as well. So I like hearing people with their fiction ideas, and I think some of what you were talking about actually has a lot of alignment with some of the things that make this game interesting. So I would love to hear more, or if I get a chance to visit your wonderful stream that I hope all of you follow, maybe I get to hear it there. But whatever it is, definitely I would like to follow up on that as long as you are willing to. I guess we would use Mr. Kill with the winter on this one. I'll have a think on that. We also have the Glaring Room, which, again, presumably Mr. Kill and Winter. Actually, you know what? Let's take some time to calculate this. So yeah, we can get 10 Winter with Mr. Kill and Solomon's Preparation right away. So that's actually two rooms we basically have in the bag. Reverend Timothy would be 2 Faust. Yeah, so Reverend Timothy is actually kind of interesting because we don't have the lantern to boost him pretty far. Good to know. Well, this is a bit of a risk, but let's actually catalog the book instead. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Sea season today, sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Ava's Locks, a pale rack washed up on the beach by Brandkrug. So we'll set that up in here. And Serpentinite Slab, the grey-green root rock of the Cornish coast. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So we're starting to run out of space for all this stuff in the forge. I also need to feed the dog at some point. Would actually not be a bad time for me to do this because we should be able to, harvest the grapes. Now I have an idea of the book's nature and its contents. A 12 moth text on the serenity of the black wood. So this is the 10 shelf, so I did say that 12 was too tough. For now. Right, dusk, night has fallen, dawn will come soon. Oh no! I focused too much on the nectar, not on the nuts. Oh well. Nothing I can do to change that now. I think the way I'll handle that is to handle Coil and Chasm, we'll just use the Earth Sign and I'll get one of my Elements of the Soul to level that up right away. And then... I'm not sure. Yeah, we can... I'm sure we'll be able to make it work. I should probably open these rooms sooner rather than later, but I'm also interested in miners. So miners offer Scale Forge and a Little Moon. Alternatively, add a soul card to find rarer guests who might be seeking employment. So I don't actually need to use up an element of the soul, it seems. So in spring, the local miners often travel to the Feast of Lights below. If one breaks his journey at the Sweet Bones, a shilling will buy his labor for a day. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to pour another... Actually, I don't even need to pour a cup. I'll just take it from the table. I will start by reading the Hissing Key. So health there, Earth Sign, Horns and Ivories, and Peribiot. I can master this mystery, enough scale to match mystery scale. Now I'm going to have to leave this other health aside so that I can level up Coil and Chasm. Actually, I'm also going to need to do this with Horns and Ivories, so it's just misery all around. Let's see what the weather brings. Sunny day. In spring, the local miners often travel to the Feast of Lights below. If one breaks his journey at the Sweet Bones, a shilling will buy his labor for a day. Thus, they more or less ruled themselves with the help of their wild Celtic temperament. Oh no! Okay, that's not enough forge. All right. Inconvenient. So I am going to wind up using this health with Denzil after all. Denzil will talk about practical matters, though he prefers to sit in silence. A shilling will buy his help for a day. Not my favorite, but there we go. Okay, bring back the health right away. Talk with Denzil about his metal. Inspiration and determination boosts forge and edge. Now, we can use the Faust to get back the Earth Sign. I'll probably use the Whist as well. Yeah, here's what we'll do. Let's take the... Horns and Ivories is knock, right? Okay. So there's a couple options that I have here. Number one is to get the knock through a pattern or salt. So I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So that's the first of two that I'm going to need. I guess the next one... Well, we can use the pattern, I guess. Our course is fixed. Alright, so... I didn't get a forge memory for him. Alright, well, we'll give him the spanners and the tea. Let's use that last whist to generate a forge memory. I really bungled the start for today. I think we're back to In the Mallory. So keeping the Fete and the Tryst for leveling up, or for visiting Crowcross Sands and the Moor, but obviously I have Coiling Chasm and Horns and Ivories to level up too. This tool has boosted their aspects appropriately, so now we'll give you the tea. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. We'd recently read See Does Not Regret, so we'll move on both of these. Alright, still don't have the memories, so I'm just going to relax for a bit. Sweet Bones is empty, so let's take our Whist and turn this into a moneymaker. And you can kind of see why I didn't bring in somebody to teach me a language. This slot's kind of occupied right now. Alright, The Raptures of Forculus, the first volume of Abbot Geoffrey's hypothetical theological debates in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Forculus might be counted among his names, but that door remains closed, and so Forculus is not. Jeffrey discusses the signs that mark doors, which might permit or forbid access to certain thoughts and dreams, speculating carefully on which of the sanctioned hours might teach or govern each sign. In the Mallory, a lively account of the creation of each jewel at the world's beginning. Lively, yes, but almost entirely nonsense. Pearl, the tears of the forgotten moon, caught by the lionsmith in his net. Ruby, the blood of the first bird, stung by the lionsmith's hammer. The author is either terribly misinformed of the nature of the hours, or one begins to suspect is intentionally throwing up a smokescreen to confuse seekers of the invisible arts. But there are some useful crumbs of fact to be picked out of the daft and gaping cracks. All right, so we're gonna chat with with Denzel about that. I can discuss a memory with my assist. Hang on. Right, we're still good. Okay. Waiting on the... Waiting on the book. There we go. The Hissing Key, an account of the ascent of the hour called the Mother of Ants by the Bossk scholar Mek of the Theban branch of the House of Leith. Mek is not sympathetic to the Mother of Ants, who he calls the Milk Thief. He reviles her for her part in the death of the Seven Coils, which he presents as a treacherous conspiracy. The Milk Thief conspires with the Legian Echidna as the hour to be called Chiliarch, now more generally rendered as Colonel, to unseam the Seven Coils with feathers and drown her in salt. The Colonel thus ascends to hour status. The jealous Milk Thief, once the Colonel's priestess, seduces Echidna into lending her the Hissing Key to enter the Mantis through the Savage Door, beginning her own ascent to name and ultimately hour. So we get a hindsight for that, and serpents and venoms as expected. Okay, now we get to commit some stuff. Let me bring the book in, though. So, serpents and venoms. Coil and Chasm. Let's deal with that first. Health. I think only the Earth's... No, actually, we're still good. Let's use the hindsight for that. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches on the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. Now, it's actually kind of tempting to keep this hindsight for Mr. Kill, but I'm still going to need to... I'm going to need to generate a memory at some point, so maybe we'll just chat with the miner and see if we can get lucky with the... Actually, you know what? I can't keep the hindsight anyway because of the bed that I'm in. Never mind. So the next step will be to level up Horns and Ivories. I might as well do that now. We're halfway through the day, so I'm trying to think if there's another step for me to take. This I'm just going to put on the cycle of earning me some money. Yeah, I think really it's going to be learning languages and filling in the memories. So here we will open up the broken bridge. The jail bridge stands still, but charred and twisted. It groans dangerously in the wind. A fire then, but what fire does this? It's as if someone has trailed a match flame along a bridge of wax. On the far side, the gate stands wide. When the bridge is repaired, I can enter the jail. So unless I think I can do some kind of super scale thing, or super moon thing. Actually, scale's really the biggest one, so unless I think I can somehow generate 11 scale, I think we should just use the miner for memories. For the rest of the day, I want to level up Serpents and Venoms, and for some reason I thought I should renew my Whist rather than my health? What was I thinking? Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to do was to get Serpents and Venoms taken care of. We've got the health on the way now. I could, of course, investigate more of the house. I think what I'm going to do, though, I'm going to check out some books. Catalog a Solar Period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. There's, of course, always the danger that we will get an affliction, but I want to read these books. Okay, so the next round, I think we're going to use Mr. Kill to open up the glaring room and the stopped clock. Skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Worms, 7 coils, dangerous places, how earthquakes are bound, and why they are released. I'm just basically going to spam the miner until something comes up that I can use. Now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. A second glory, the priest Jusei celebrates the extirpation of the gods who were stone, those hours who preceded humanity. 12 winter text. And the Gospel of Zacchaeus. So this has Synthic Taint, Poison, a Curse, probably both. Be careful handling this book. So Shapt and Health are at risk. It's an 8 knock text, but we're going to put this in the quarantine areas. I have lots of different curses. But yeah, so you know what? If I put... No, I can't put my Tristan, sadly. Maybe the dispensary. So I had quenchings and quellings. And I should be able to add a flower. So from there, if I take... Oh no, don't tell me I didn't get any blue crown. Oh, shame on me. I gotta wait till winter now. Well, okay, not strictly true, actually. If I take a hindsight and I combine that with a flower, then we're fine. So here's what I'm gonna do instead. Let's talk with Tuppence. Nope, we can't talk with Tuppence because we're waiting. Never mind. We're doing nothing. Bancrook Jail, built in 1896 at the behest of Nocturnal Branch to contain troubles unseemly and occult. A mere 6 years later, after the Ortuccio incident, the branch itself came to be considered unseemly and occult, and its functions were absorbed into the Suppression Bureau, but the jail still stands. Over the gate is the Bureau's motto, Alice si licit, tibi non licit. commonly rendered as, "It is permitted to us, it is not permitted to you." And this is the first nocturnal room. By the beginning of the 20th century, an unwise librarian's enthusiasm had brought Hush House to penury. Nocturnal Branch, later the Suppression Bureau, stepped in to offer an arrangement. Hush House received funding, but submitted to yearly inspections. It also surrendered a portion of the aisle for the branch's prison. So if we want to progress, we now have three different places to use our Winter 10. So we actually can unlock quite a bit of the house. I do still want to, where I can, level up these various skills. I'm going to see if I can spend some time on my own to work out exactly the path that I want to take through the Tree of Wisdoms. I know I've said I've wanted to do that a couple of times, but I'm just running out of the time to be able to do that. But I think this is a good place to wrap up for tonight. So thank you everybody for watching as always. I actually really appreciate the people who came in asking questions, because I know it's really easy for me to sometimes take this stuff for granted. And I appreciate it when people give me some nudges in terms of where, where we can go with this. Now, we do still have a couple of people on, so let's see if there's anybody online that I can host. All right, I think I am going to host Revived Snow, who is currently playing DJ Max Respect 5. Revived Snow, I feel like I've been hosting them quite a bit lately, but it's largely just because of who's online and available. Revived Snow is a pretty unique channel because they are fellow Canadian, but they do both a camless and voiceless broadcast. So they do text-to-speech, and they do it quite well. It's rather an engaging stream, and I've seen them do a few different games that interest me. So they've played Phantom Brigade, they have played... I think they've been playing a lot... Oh, God, what's it called? It was the one in the... It's like the First Ascendant or something like that. I know it was on the Weather Factory weather forecast. Anyways, Revive Snow is always a nice broadcaster. It's nice to hang out with them, and I do appreciate it when you folks come along. I figure most of you have probably already decided if it's your kind of thing. But I usually don't like ending a broadcast and not being able to send people along somewhere. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I'm going to record some new Book of Hours episodes for YouTube over the weekend, as well as catch up on a little bit of the work that I have. And my expectation would be that we will be back for more Book of Hours on Monday, the 12th. I'll try to start as close to between that 7 to 8 window as possible, but I still need to figure out exactly my relation to work and how quickly I can get home. Anyways, have a good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.